touch.
Every day, NTV News Team moves you to the center of the action.
The security forces who took part in this operation,
police are not taking anything to chance it.
Moves you to the heart of the story to witness and record history.
Rendering the declared results null and void.
Telling the story of Kenya.
The growing importance of border in Mandera.
Matatus will be on strike.
And beyond.
The politics in the United States capital.
It is the 7th edition of the Global Education taking place in Dubai.
When it comes to business, we crunch the numbers and unpack the detail with the latest information for your investment decision.
It's time to say goodbye to this note and karibu to this note.
In order for the manufacturing sector to be elevated from the ground.
Despite the government's promise to create at least 1.3 million jobs.
Moves you fast past the planes and trucks to bring you the triumphs and joys of our great men and women.
Moving stories that touch our hearts.
I didn't know that I could go back to school.
The back to school program has brought hope to these young mothers.
NTV News. News that moves you.
Prepare yourself for a new live bet experience. Top minute, boosted live bet odds. Mozart, make a decision.
Beba. 50-50. Oya kaenda buda.
Hapo mbele na unipe change.
Sawa. Fanya hivi, nipatie so, alafu nikupatie 80, alafu huyu dem atakupatia 30, alafu ule mzee akinipatia robe yangu na kupatia so, alafu huyu dem bado ako na so yangu, akinipatia na kupatia 80 au unarudishia 50 bwana. Simple. Sawa.
If only all things in life were as simple as 2 bob per minute to any network. Enjoy the best voice rate in Kenya. No bundle, no expiry, no minimum top-up. Now that's simple. Switch to NTV, the smartphone network.
Welcome home to Amani Ridge, the place of peace. Your own urban sanctuary. A lifestyle waiting for you just 20 kilometers from the CBD. A place to unwind and get your health and fitness goals attained. A secure place for your family. A place for your children to have fun. A place to enjoy a sundowner. Success just doesn't happen. You have to make it happen. Make the impossible possible. Invest in Amani Ridge, the place of peace. Luxury you can afford. Call us today on 0790 300 300 or visit www.optivan.co.ke.
Imperial Education Consultants is inviting students and parents to their International Universities Expo, where different universities from the UK, Canada, US, Malaysia, Russia and many more will be attending. Don't forget, entry is free on the 3rd of February, Sirikwa Hotel Eldoret, 4th of February, Merika Hotel Nakuru. On the 8th of February, Sankara Hotel Nairobi, and on the 9th of February, Bliss Resort Nyali Mombasa. IEC helps you with free career counseling, university application, study visa assistance, scholarship assistance, loan assistance, accommodation booking, travel arrangements, pre-departure briefing, and airport pickup assistance.
Over the years, Camry has grown to become a world-renowned medical research institution. Join us on the 10th February 2020 as we celebrate our 40th anniversary. The hallmark of the anniversary celebrations is the 10th Camry Annual Scientific and Health Conference taking place between 11th and 13th February 2020 at the Safari Park Hotel, Nairobi. Camry will also have a free specialized medical camp in various counties across the country. Visit our website for more information.
Ni nani? Yemo.
Naona tu nikachai buda.
Hapa nikachai tu tunashapa hivyo hivyo.
Umesema hakuna mkate kabisa?
Hakuna.
Chaja hii simu.
Acha nikuombe kwa neighbor. Ndio hiyo.
Niko na kiselekta hapa.
Mkate ni selector. Tosha.
Demo!
Meru County Government brings you the first ever Mount Kenya Mountain Running Championship on 22nd February 2020. Come run for a cause to fight cancer, boost environmental conservation, and promote Meru County as a tourist destination. The proceeds from this run go towards the building of the first ever Cancer Institute in Meru Level 5, which will be used to do research on cancer, create awareness, advise on preventive measures, offer diagnosis and treatment. Register to be part of the event at www.mountkenyarun.co.ke. Challenging the heights.
With Libana M-Pesa, you get more, and now you can win.
Libana M-Pesa.
There are surprise gifts to 8 customers every minute. Tractors with extras.
Libana M-Pesa.
Plus 6 apartments to be given away. Make payments via M-Pesa buy goods or pay bill. Every 100 shillings spent on Libana M-Pesa earns you an entry into the draw. Do more with Libana M-Pesa.
This is NTV.
Good evening. You are right in time for a comprehensive coverage of the day's events on this third day of the national mourning. And the government will give you a day off next week on Tuesday to allow you to join the rest of the country for the interdenominational memorial service. We have all the details for you about that and many more stories of the day. But first, let's take a look at the highlights.
Tonight, the post-mortem examination report is out. How the little angels met their death.
Mauti ya wote ilisababishwa na kukosa hewa.
Families now prepare to bury the young ones. Plus, a state funeral, public holiday, and public viewing.
The head of state is expected to arrive at Parliament buildings at 10:15 a.m. on Saturday.
Government plan for Moi's final journey. And the verdict on judges' appointment is in.
That the president's failure to appoint the persons recommended for appointment as judges violates the constitution.
Court tells president to approve without questions. Also tonight, the symptoms are clear.
Let me say these allegations are not true.
Deny, deny, deny as KRA cancels hospitals' services.
NTV Tonight with Ken Lijungu.
Great to have you with us. My co-pilot tonight is David Agondoa. Now, begin with the story of the pupils who died in Kakamega Primary School stampede, who were involved in the stampede on Monday, and they died as a result of suffocation. This is according to the autopsy report that was released by Kakamega County pathologist Dr. Dixon Mshana. Some of the pupils claimed that the stampede was as a result of a Class 5 pupil causing a scare. Zacchaeus Mosame begins our tonight's coverage.
Parents, family and friends of the 14 pupils who died after stampede
Stampede at Kakamega Primary School braved the difficult motions and numbing grief and made their way to the Kakamega County Referral Hospital mortuary to witness the post-mortem examination on their little ones. Parents, alongside officers from the Directorate of Criminal Investigations Office in Kakamega, witnessed the autopsy that lasted for close to 4 hours.
Mauti ya wote ilisababishwa na kukosa hewa ajili ya kulaliana. Kwa kimombo tunaita suffocation. Ndio, wote.
And actually we were told that our daughter had a difficult breathing. That's why we couldn't get him.
Jambo la kushangaza katika hiyo postmortem, hakuna damu yote, mtoto ni white cells. Sasa ndo tunashangaa nini.
Some of the parents expressed their contentment with the procedure, while others criticized the county government over what they allege is underfunding the process.
Makoka alisema tutashughulikiwa next week. Kwenda jana meeting tunaitwa. Tunashtuliwa watoto wanatolewa Friday. Hiyo Friday tunawaambia tukwa tumejipanga, mbona mnatushtua hivi?
So we are just wondering kama walisema watachukua huu mzigo wote. Hiyo ndio usaidizi walikuwa wanataka kutupa kama watoto, wazazi wa hawa watoto. So I'm just of the opinion that hata hii usaidizi ingekaa.
But the county government, through the funeral committee chair, Musa Chibole, sought to assure the public that all is well in regards to the funeral preparations.
Tutakuwa na ibada ambayo itaendeshwa na makanisa yote ya Kikristo ambayo itaendesha hiyo ibada hapo kesho. Na wale ambao wataweza kubeba mili yao, tumewachia familia kupanga siku zenye watazika. Wale wataweza kubeba kesho watabeba, na wale ambao hawataweza kubeba wanapatiwa nafasi kuchukua wakati ule wataamua.
What actually happened remains unclear, but there have been theories and allegations. One of them is that our class 5 people wore a face mask and shouted in class that he was a ghost and wanted to suck their blood. The pupils then alleged ran for safety, leading to the stampede.
Nilikuwa nimehesabiwa kwa maiti, alafu vile nilitupwa kwa ambulance, nikasiniza, alafu wakajua mimi nimeamka. Mwenye alikuwa na shout ni mtoto wa class 5, na huyo mtu alikuwa mahali au watoto walimuona wakianza kushout ghost. So watoto wakianza kutoka kwa class wakasahau hata vitabu, wakatoka mbio, wakaanza kuangushana kwa staircase.
Jana mwenye alipanda juu alishout akisema ameona mtu amevaa pembe, amejipaka uso, kuna nguo ya white, red na black, na anataka kunyonya watu damu.
The pathologist, Dr. Mshana, has disputed claims that evil spirits could have led to the death of the young ones and has also been alleged by various parents and leaders.
Kila mtu anakuja na mambo yake kujaribu kuelezea ambacho anadhani kilisababisha kifo. Ndio maana sayansia inakuja ndani sasa kuchunguza, ndo kusema ukweli na kutofautisha uongo.
After the post-mortem, a joint requiem mass will be held on Friday at the Buhongo Stadium before the bodies are dispatched to different families for burial. Zakis Masai, NTV, Kakamega.
Now, away from that, Tuesday has been declared a public holiday in honor of former President Daniel Arap Moi and to allow Kenyans to participate in the interdenominational state funeral service, which will be held at the Nyayo Stadium. Now, the government has also released the official program of activities leading to Moi's burial on Wednesday at his Kabarak home that's in Nakuru County. Seth Olale with that report.
The military taking over operations at Parliament buildings, where Mzee Moi will lie in state from Saturday to Monday. According to a senior military source, this area where Moi's condolence book has been placed is one of the key locations identified for the lying in state of the former head of state. Members of the public will access the area through the main entrance of Parliament and leave through the rear entrance, usually used by parliamentary staff and journalists. Only essential staff will be required on duty during the 3 days of public viewing.
His Excellency Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta will lead the nation in viewing of the body of the former president as well as the paying of last respects.
The cottage will leave the funeral home at 8:05 a.m. on Saturday and arrive at Parliament Buildings with a casket draped in the national flag and escorted by the family of President Moi. A solemn procession will take place along Valley Road, Kenyatta Avenue through to Parliament Road, where a military guard of honor will be mounted for the entry procession to Parliament. After lying in state for 3 days, on Tuesday, which has been declared a public holiday in honor of late retired President Daniel Moi, the gun carriage and state funeral procession will make its way from Parliament Buildings to the Nyayo Stadium for an interdenominational national memorial service that will be led by the African Inland Church.
We are in the process of compiling the list of heads of state and government and other foreign dignitaries who have indicated to us that they shall attend the state memorial service. The former head of state will be accorded full military ceremonial honors, which in a gun carriage, accompanied by military musical honors and a 19-gun salute.
On Wednesday, the late Moi will be laid to rest at his Kabarak home in Kabarak, Nakuru County. Kenyans across all walks of life have been encouraged to actively participate in the state funeral, either by planting a tree in memory of the late head of state or attend the body viewing as well as the state funeral set for Tuesday. Seth Olale, NTV, at the Office of the President, Nairobi County.
And of course, the government has taken full charge of this funeral program. And let's now take you through the itinerary of the late former president's farewell. And here is where we begin. On Saturday, the 8th of February, the body will leave Lee Funeral Home. Procession to Parliament. Body arrives in Parliament and lies in state. At 10:15 on Saturday, President Uhuru Kenyatta will arrive in Parliament. And on Sunday, the body will still be lying in state at Parliament, and the viewing of the body will also be open to the public on Sunday, 9th February. And on Monday, 10th February, body will still be lying in state, and of course, there will be public viewing on that day. So let's go now to Tuesday, the day of the holiday. The body leaves Parliament, gun carriage and state funeral procession. The procession arrives at Nyayo Stadium, and the National Memorial Service starts, led by AIC Church, which the president was part of. And finally, on Wednesday, the burial will be conducted at his Kabarak home, that's in Nakuru. So those are the details that have been released by the government, and that's how it will happen. So you have from Saturday to Monday to view the body at Parliament Buildings. Moving forward now, and the late President Daniel Arap Moi was not an oppressive leader, just a law-abiding citizen or leader. This is according to former cabinet minister and now Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka, who says the then head of state was just doing what needed to be done. This is despite the accusations of incidents of detention without trial and torture that happened during the Nyayo reign. Now, Musyoka was among the leaders who, alongside family and friends, flocked at the late retired president's home in Kabarnet Gardens, his official residence here in Nairobi, to condole with the family. ANC party leader Musalia Mudavadi and retired African Inland Church Bishop Silas Yego also visited the home.
Before he died, I was there with him, and he took the Lord's table, and he was so cheerful, he was so happy about it. So we as AIC, we are so happy that he has gone to be with the Lord. This sickness was giving him a lot of pains and so forth, although he was alert all through.
Kenyans do not know that on his instructions, I outlawed corporal punishment in schools. And all President Moi used to do was to apply the law. Of course, when you apply the law, there are some people who will be rubbed the wrong way. Of course, some ended up in detention. So those things happened because that was the system, the legal system. And I think that is when it became necessary for him to undo all that. He did that unreservedly. So I think Kenyans should really give Mzee a send-off, minus those negative.
Ain't that very interesting from Kalonzo Musyoka, who, by the way, served in the former and now late president's cabinet, and later rose to be the vice president of the country. Let's move on to other matters also making your headlines today. And this is from the Nairobi Women's Hospitals Board, which now says the allegations of exploiting patients is false and lacks merit and facts. Now, this is despite evidence in the public domain, as well as the latest blow, which is the Kenya Revenue Authority suspending the institution from its list of service providers. NTV's Silas Apollo reports on the hospital that is under fire.
They say when it rains, it pours, and it seems the rain is hitting hard on the Nairobi Women's Hospital. After 17 insurance firms suspended the hospital from their list of accredited service providers, the taxman has joined the fray. In an internal memo, the Kenya Revenue Authority's Deputy Commissioner of Human Resources, Nelson Mukuria, has asked members of staff to seek medical services at alternative facilities. Mukuria says Nairobi Women's Hospital has been suspended from the KRA list of approved medical service providers with immediate effect. He adds that the suspension stands until the contentious issues between the authority and the hospital are resolved conclusively. The institution has been accused of ripping off patients through, among other things, misdiagnosis, deliberately delaying discharges, as well as unnecessary admissions and tests. But the hospital's founder, Sam Thayer, denies the allegations, arguing that the institution works within the law.
Let me say these allegations are not true. And at the same time say, this is not the Nairobi Women's Hospital Board policy. We have our policies, we have our procedures, and we have our processes.
However, this may be seen as a slap in the face of all who have shared their experiences, horrific and agonizing ones at that, experiences which resonate with messages of leaked WhatsApp chats of its Nakuru branch group. This also insinuates that the insurance firms, as well as the Kenya Revenue Authority, have no basis for their suspensions. Some patients have accused the hospital of forcing them to pay cash despite having medical cover.
There are various situations where somebody may be asked to pay more above the insurance, what the insurance or the payer is paying. And one of them would be the insurance tells you, admit patient X or so-and-so. They have a limit of 30,000 shillings. We have no agreement with the insurance company that the bill will be 30,000 shillings. If the bill goes to 35,000 shillings, the insurance company tells us, recover that from the patient.
The allegations have painted what was initially fashioned as a safe haven for victims of gender-based violence as an institution of horror for many vulnerable people. There speaks of the ideal case, the picture painted on the corporate boardroom agreements. The hospital's accusers say what is out of the boardroom and on the ground, as well as in the wards, is different. Silas Apollo, NTV.
And of course, the row continues, and we'll definitely try as much as we can to get you information out of that situation from the Nairobi Women's Hospital. Now to another form of row between the judiciary and the executive over the appointment of 41 new judges, which could now deepen further after the court declared President Kenyatta's refusal to approve the appointment unconstitutional, and the three-judge bench ruled that the president was out of order and warned the head of state, who has questioned the integrity of some of the judges, to expeditiously formalize the appointment, as Kenneth Muredi now reports.
A new round of controversy may just have been visited on the two arms of government, that is the executive and the judiciary, after a three-judge bench gave the president an ultimatum on the appointment of new judges. In a ruling delivered Thursday afternoon, the three-judge bench concluded that it was unconstitutional for the president to keep the appointment of the 41 judges pending for 6 months, with the only reason being given reservations from the National Intelligence Service.
A declaration be and is hereby issued that the president's failure to appoint the persons recommended for appointment as judges violates the Constitution and the Judicial Service Act.
The Judicial Service Commission has been categorical that it followed all the laid down procedures in a rigorous exercise that led to the recommendation for appointment of the 41 judges, and still holds the state's non-approval could be driven by other reasons other than just recommendations from the NIS. The judges did not, however, specify the time frame within which the president must approve the promotions.
That the continued delay to appoint the persons recommended as judges of the respective courts is a violation of Articles 2, 1, 3(1), Article 10, Article 73(1)(a), Article 133(2)(a), Article 166(1), Article 172(1)(a), and Article 249(2) of the Constitution.
The President and Chief Justice David Maraga recently appeared to make peace after fights between the two institutions, and it will be interesting to see how President Kenyatta will react to the court order.
There is no justification at all under the laws of Kenya, be it the Constitution or the Judicial Service Act, for the President to reverse or to sit on nominations of judges who have been forwarded to him for appointment. His is merely a mechanical exercise of just gazetting those appointments.
The Judicial Service Commission has argued that the delay in approving the judges has created a crisis in the judiciary and undermines the independence of the judiciary.
The Law Society of Kenya would have been happier if the court gave him 14 days within which to make the appointment, so that after 14 days we can come back, to enforce that judgment, or by way of asking the court to declare these judges as gazetted, and then to pave way for their swearing in.
The President has argued that some of the judges being promoted have integrity issues, and he just cited the Akasha drugs case, in which some judicial officers were allegedly compromised. Some sources, however, say the delay may be occasioned by political reasons. Kennedy Mureithi, NTV.
Right, away from those, let's get to other stories touching on the capital now. And Nairobi County Speaker Beatrice Elachi wants to be granted the green light to run the county as governor. In a petition filed in court, Elachi is seeking constitutional interpretation on whether she can assume office now that the constitutionally elected leader, that's Governor Mike Mbuvi Sonko, has been barred from office, arguing that a constitutional crisis has been occasioned at City Hall. Now, the Speaker is seeking permission to assume the gubernatorial functions in the county in the absence of Sonko and a substantive deputy governor. In Sonko's defense, his lawyer Tom Ojenda argues that the High Court ruling barring the governor from office did not mean that he has entirely been removed from office. They're now seeking the three-judge bench to determine whether the embattled governor should be barred from discharging his official functions. The case will be heard on the 5th of next month. Right, away from that, the latest decision by the Teachers Service Commission to recall teachers after terrorists killed students and teachers in Garissa County has seen leaders from the three northeastern counties cry foul. Now, the leaders are calling out on the government for not looking at the education interests of their children. But as Leila Mohammed now reports, it was a similar situation in Wajir 2 years ago, and while some proposals were brought to the table, the government is yet to implement those proposals.
The trip to Karsa Primary School back in March of 2018, a month after 3 people, among them 2 teachers, were brutally murdered in their rooms on the night of February 16th, was to establish the extent of destruction and terror. On the day, learning was ongoing under the supervision of the only TSC-employed teacher left in the school, the headmaster Ahad Hassan Ali. The aftermath of a night of terror still visible in the living quarters that was bullet-riddled and abandoned.
Locals describe hearing screams for 1.5 hours before they officially died down, and for the occupants of this room it was a battle of their lives, an hour-long battle that they eventually lost.
At the time, teachers from the larger northeastern region were camping at the TSC offices, desperate to get transfer letters to other parts of the country. 2 years down the line, same script, different cast. Another deadly terror attack inside Garissa County left non-local teachers fleeing the area in fear. The TSC reacted by recalling all non-local teachers from the county, much to the disappointment of the leadership.
I can't imagine what it is or threats teachers will face, which other non-Somali populations don't face in those towns.
While insecurity has been cited by the teacher's employer, the Cabinet Secretary for Education differs.
I was trained
to go out and fight. And my personal take is that teachers will be posted to all parts of the country.
Non-local teachers in Garissa County have questioned the CS's statement and just want to be transferred from the attack-prone areas.
He fears to be working here. His life is in danger. Then you are bringing the same non-local teacher back to this place. Unless you only just want to provide him with a job opportunity, then definitely tomorrow he's going to run away.
The frequent hit of these outroad groups is causing a difficult life for teachers in this area.
When our local residents are involving themselves into some of these things, at the end of the day, who is losing?
During her tenure, CS Amina Mohammed proposed the lowering of the entry grade into teacher training institutions to D+ to enable local study education in order to keep children in the 3 counties in school. The proposal was widely criticized and never implemented. Leila Mohammed, NTV.
Right, let's now update you of something that you're really interested to know, the coronavirus. And the family and friends of Kenyan students living in China are concerned about the threats issued to their kin stuck in the stranded in the coronavirus hit provinces in China. Now, this comes as one of the doctors who had first encounters of the virus died today. Now, the doctor is believed to be part of the first 8 patients of the deadly virus that has claimed close to 600 lives and affected over 24,000 people. Now, giving the daily updates on the virus, that's coronavirus, World Health Organization Director General described the fight against the new strain as shadowboxing because little is known of the SARS-like disease. He further considered that the Global Health Agency does not properly understand how it is transmitted or its severity. The Ministry of Health is expected to give its update on the coronavirus as confirmatory results on the suspected cases are expected tomorrow. And also, the WHO now says that a total of 67.7 billion shillings is needed to fight the coronavirus. So that's the update also from the WHO. Time now for a short break, but news continues right here on NTV Tonight. Stay with us.
What do you see on the horizon? They say how you start your decade will determine how the rest of it will be. Imagine a decade full of opportunities, investment being one of them. Do you want a place to feed your mind, body and soul? A place to unwind every day, where you can get your health and fitness goals attained? A secure place for your family? A center for quality academic goals for your kids? Or perhaps a place to connect with your friends? Well, you can get all this and more at Amani Ridge, the place of peace, just 20 kilometers from the CBD. Call us today on 0790 300 300 or visit www.optivan.co.ke.
It feels good, Coca-Cola and food, Monday to Sunday. We're all chasing taste. Let's just grab a bite, the excuse to drink Coca-Cola every single day. So we feel forever be real, together stay free wherever at. No, we can't stop, we wanna taste the feeling. Nothing can ever bring us down. Taste the feeling.
With Lipa na M-Pesa, you get more and now you can win.
Kwa majina naitwa Samuel Wajohi kutoka Nyeri County. Kazi yenye nafanya ni ya kugonga kagoto, kuweka malori. Maisha yangu imebadilika sababu yada mahali nikalipa na tiru namba hii. By Tuesday asubuhi nikapigiwa na Safaricom. Ikasemekana mimi nimejishindia nyumba nalipa na M-Pesa. Funguo iko kwa mkono yangu na maisha yangu imebadilika kwa saa hii. Wenye wako nyumbani ama Kenya yote mahali iko, waendelee kushiriki na lipa na M-Pesa, tutazidi kushinda.
Lipa na M-Pesa and win now. Do more with Lipa na M-Pesa.
E-waste defines all electronics that are obsolete or are overtaken by technology. Take initiative to dispose safely. Reach us on email or the numbers on your screen.
Your multi-bet is on its way to hit the bullseye. Oh, you lose one match, but only in Mozart. Mozart Refund, lose one game, get your cash back. Make a decision. Terms and conditions apply. Over the years, Camry has grown to become a world-renowned medical research institution. Join us on the 10th February 2020 as we celebrate our 40th anniversary. The hallmark of the anniversary celebrations is the 10th Camry Annual Scientific and Health Conference taking place between 11th and 13th February 2020 at the Safari Park Hotel, Nairobi. Camry will also have a free specialized medical camp in various counties across the country. Visit our website for more information.
Kiambu Town MP Honorable Jude Jomo made these revelations.
Nikamwambia gavana, ile kitu nataka kuambia hatuwezi ongea hapa. Akaniambia kuja nikuonyeshe. Akaniigiza kwa choo.
The moment Jude Jomo started by Bwana Governor, ile njia ambayo tunaona sio mzuri, badilisha. Waitito akaangalia akajua huyu anataka kuongea mbolea.
But actually I did ask Moi, can you be Joshua?
And he refused.
Yeah, and he kept quiet. He refused to commit himself.
That's because he was Daniel. Now,
The Wicked Edition, every Friday from 7:30 p.m.
Do you want a place to feed your mind, body and soul? A secure place for your family? A center for quality academic goals for your kids? Call us today on 0790 300 300.
And a multi-agency team comprising of the National Environment Management Authority, that's NEMA, National Environment Complaints Committee and security agencies now want the VOK dam site shut down. That's in Mombasa. Now this comes amid a battle for ownership of the 23-acre piece of land between the national broadcaster, Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, KBC, and the county government of Mombasa. Our reporter in Mombasa, Kevin Mutai, also reports that the residents want the garbage cleared from the site due to health concerns.
For years and now, heaps of garbage have been piling up on this 23-acre piece of land in VOK, Mombasa County. Residents living here have to endure the effects of smoke, which they claim pose health problems.
Homa za kifua haziishi. Kila wakati watu wanakohoa, wakitoa makohozi mazito na imeaffect, inafanya watu hata kufanya kazi vizuri inakuwa shida.
In the era of epidemics, you have heard of corona. These corona things and these typhoid and cholera, and it's all environmental.
Some of the tenants have vacated the area as investors head elsewhere, citing the stench from the garbage in the area. The clogged drainage systems have also rendered the road impassable, especially when it rains. It becomes a nightmare for motorists.
Kulikuwa noma kabisa, tuwezi pita na hapa. Supu hapa. Kulikuwa ni supu, ukipita hapa kukinyesha ndo noma, mainzi kibao. Huwezi pita hapa.
Hapa mteja anasema, makweli hizi takataka, huu uchafu huu unatoa harufu mbaya sana mpaka anashika mapua.
Takataka zinamwagika mpaka barabarani. Sasa kwenda kazini imekuwa shida sana.
Lakini vitu kingine nakwambia kwa nini yuko kwako? Maana hapa sio kwako, hapo kwa mspa. Kama la kuhusu jitembeze.
The land dispute between the national broadcaster KBC and Mombasa County government has been going on for a while now. KBC Managing Director Naim Bilal claims that 7 acres of the land has already been hived off, accusing the county government of frustrating their efforts to reclaim the land.
There is a lot of documentation that places the ownership of this land beyond dispute. What is important now is to reclaim the land from garbage and to fence it.
What the county government has been doing here in terms of allowing the waste to be dumped here, we have already said it has to be stopped from now on, and we have NEMA here, which have actually given orders to ensure that no further dumping of waste to this point.
In what it seems to be like a reprieve for the residents of VOK here in Mombasa following the closure of this dumping site, now what remains is for the county government to relocate this garbage to another area. Kevin Mutai, NTV, Mombasa.
Right, I know you're wondering what happened to Tim after the death of that jumbo. Now the preservation of the remains of Tim, one of the last remaining great Tusker elephants in the country who died on Tuesday, has begun. Now this comes after the mighty mammal took its final bow, interestingly, days apart with the demise of retired President Moi, under whose order the jumbo received protection. Zainab Ismail takes us to the National Museums of Kenya, where the preservation has begun.
A towering figure, a gentle giant, and an ambassador for his species. Tim was one of the largest and most famous elephants to whom the Amboseli National Park was home. However, his notoriety in crop destruction earned him the ill feelings of many a farmer. In fact, he's said to have been speared 3 times in his lifetime.
Right now, ndio ndovu ile tunaona akona meno mzuri na akona meno kubwa na tunachunga sana maana hatutaki watu wakaribie.
Tim had hit the 50-year-old mark. His tusks had grown so long that they reached the ground like other great African tuskers. He died on Tuesday at the park and his body was transported to the National Museums of Kenya in Nairobi for preservation. A tusk that is elephant.
Because Tim is very huge, it couldn't fit into the lab space we have. We have to have a makeshift of a theater outside here. So we are now skinning it to recover the skin, treat the skin, and thereafter we are going to go for the organs and the bones. We are going to preserve all these separately, and after some time we are going to construct them to make Tim look like it's alive. Tim will be our first elephant to be skinned and systematically mounted for taxidermic exhibition.
Tim's likeness will now stand tall next to another revered tusker known as Ahmed, an emblematic elephant known to many in the 1960s and 70s, one who enjoyed presidential protection.
Ahmed and Tim share some commonalities in terms of being the icons of conservation of elephants.
Tim's tusks are now under the protection of the Kenya Wildlife Service, the left one weighing 61 kilograms and the right one 73 kilos. 31 years ago, the late President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi personally set fire to 13 tons of ivory, the largest decimation of ivory by any country, and just after Moi took over his last bow, Big Tim, who had enjoyed immense protection by Moi's decree, also passed on. He leaves behind a younger male elephant named Greg, with whom he roamed the park for years. Well, 50-year-old Tim represented all the different values, both negative and positive, that humans place on an elephant's life. To poachers, he was a target. To farmers, a costly nuisance. To tourists, he was a marvel. And to conservationists, he was a symbol of hope that conservation efforts are winning. Zainab Ismail, NTV.
Well, let's remind you of some old politics in this country. He was an old hand in politics himself. That's the late Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, who predicted that the Kenya African National Union, that's KANU, will be in power for 100 years. But faced with growing clamor for multi-party democracy, many dismissed it as wishful thinking. But as Olive Barrows found out from another old hand in politics, the professor was not so far off the mark.
The professor of politics, the late Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, predicted that we'd be singing the same tune for 100 years. And though the party symbolized by the Jogo and the one-finger salute is now not technically the ruling party, it has lived up to its reputation as Mama na Baba. After all, a rose by any other name is still a rose.
Of the 100 years that Moi spoke about, 60 years now, or no, 57 years, KANU has been in control, directly or indirectly.
KANU offspring retained their hold on power since independence, beginning with the founding father Jomo Kenyatta, succeeded by Daniel Toroitich arap Moi, who kept the party flag flying for another 24 years before handing over to Mwai Kibaki.
And don't forget, Kibaki was very KANU. He was the first head of secretariat, executive officer of KANU. Therefore, from where I sit, old algebra says, I can prove to you, Kibaki was KANU.
Kibaki served as Moi's first vice president for the first 9 years of his presidency. But it was a founding president's son, Uhuru Kenyatta, that Moi picked as his preferred successor when his exit from office could no longer be avoided. And though his vision may have been late in coming, it was eventually realized.
After Kibaki, another aliyekuwa KANU takes over. So whether you call him TNA or you come up with a name that they created called Jubilee, there are KANU. Their roots are KANU.
In fact, all the major players in Kenya's politics today were all at one point or the other students of the professor of politics. He that predicted that KANU would reign for 100 years.
Now, if you say the team that's taking over will come from between Raila, between Ruto, Musalia, Kalonzo, who have their roots, their mentality, their thinking from KANU. That's how Moi would say KANU will rule for 100 years.
Raila closing ranks with Moi in his final term to form the new KANU, Ruto kick-starting his political career as organizing secretary of Youth for KANU 92, Kalonzo serving as minister in Moi's regime, as did Mudavadi, who for a stint even served as the old man's vice president.
This is the story of every single of us who will push this party or this country to age 75. They'll all be claiming, my original party was KANU. I was live member number this before I moved to one or two other parties to get where I am today.
And so the party lives on, though some may seek to deny those that raised them in the practice of politics.
If you want to call me dynasty, because my father was a primary school teacher, he became a minister, and my father never stole, therefore I never stole, but I have a name in Kenya, call me dynasty. Do all the wrong things, and I forget where I came from, because I came from very far down. Then I don't want to be that kind of a hustler.
Olive Barrows, NTV.
Right, if you've been wondering where President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga are, then let's tell you, they were speaking together at a largely American audience over the Building Bridges initiative, which they said will secure Kenya's economic stability. President Kenyatta and his handshake partner, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, were keynote speakers at a luncheon in this year's U.S. National Prayer Breakfast meeting in Washington, D.C. Now, the president explained how the BBI was a homegrown solution to Kenya's post and past election conflicts.
A corrupt person does not steal on behalf of a community, he steals on his own behalf. And we need this to come out. And when we say we are fighting corruption, we target no community, we target individuals who commit acts of corruption. And we said we needed to deepen also and strengthen our devolved units.
And it's a very lively debate in our country today. And we believe that in not too distant future, we'll get some kind of consensus, national consensus. And once that national consensus is emerged, we'll then now move towards a referendum.
All right, time now for another break, but the news continues right here on NTV tonight. And of course, when we come back, Dan Mwangi will be here with all the business stories. Dan, what do we expect in business?
We are going to be building houses on business.
Okay.
I wish they were mine.
Not building bridges, but houses.
The bridges have been built in America.
Yes.
We're even building bridges across continents.
Yes.
But we'll be building houses on business.
Right after this break.
On this break, we'll have business. Stay tuned.
E-waste defines all electronics that are obsolete or are overtaken by technology. Take initiative to dispose safely. Reach us on email or the numbers on your screen.
I am pleased by just the simple little things of life. And I promise if you take the time, you won't be looking for too long before you find this little secret of mine.
Prepare yourself for a new live bet experience. Top minute, boosted live bet odds. Mozart, make a decision.
Hanging out, it's my summer, got my squad, we go harder, we got a little bit of feel good now. It's my better, that's my flavor. All I wanna do, all I wanna do, everything is true. All I wanna, let's have a little bit of feel good now. Be myself, that's my secret. Stop and chill, best believe it. This is the weekend, so we're getting down. Let's have a little bit of better, that's my flavor.
Melissa? Mom, it's Dad's birthday today. I'm giving him a party just like he gives me.
Nothing makes a mother more proud than seeing her child growing up. But I know that as she learns to care for others, she'll face even more germs and the risk of illnesses.
That's why you need strong Dettol protection. Just 1 cup of Dettol protects your home and family from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Growing up needs Dettol protection.
Sona moja imetengenezwa kwa njia spesheli ili kupambana na maumivu kwa haraka. Sona moja ina aspirin kama kiungo. Sona moja, kitulizo kamili. Maumivu yakizidi, pata ushauri wa daktari.
Betika community is a movement. We started this initiative to support grassroots talent because we want to change and transform lives.
Boli imechange maisha yangu. Boli imefanya nimerudi shule, nimemaliza shule. Hope sana boli itanisaidia.
At Betika we saw the amazing talent that our youth have in football around Kenya, and we said, what are the challenges that these teams and these young people are facing? And the most immediate need for them was football kits.
Tumepata uniform safi, tutakuwa tunatumia kwa tournament, so tuko ready kupiga shughuli.
Every winning team will take home a cash prize of 200,000. They get to nominate a community project in their area. Our dream is to see our boys playing in those grand soccer stadiums across the world, and we'll be very proud when we see some of our Betika community players in such tournaments.
Let's get down to business. My name is Dan Mwangi. Now, rampant corruption is stifling the inflow of investment into the construction sector. This is according to the Principal Secretary for Housing, that's Charles Hinga, who is now calling on stakeholders to join him in the fight against the vice. Alex Mwangi reports.
Often used as a barometer for measuring the health of the overall economy, the construction industry in Kenya faces a myriad challenges, including, among other things, counties having different approval processes.
With our partners, the kind of investment that they're assisting us to do, like with a one-stop shop, how do you have a one-stop shop, but with different approval regimes and registration regimes for whatever? That's not a one-stop shop.
Over the last 2 months, operations in Nairobi County have taken a hit courtesy of the leadership wrangles. However, as far as construction in the capital city is concerned, there was a market slowdown last year.
There has been a decline in the second half of last year in terms of development plan applications approved, with only 613 being approved in the last half of last year, as compared to 955 in 2018, the last half of the year prior.
The slowdown in approvals and in the provision of permits has a direct impact on households, as the Principal Secretary explained when he gave an example of his interaction with Acorn Holdings, which recently listed Kenya's first ever green bond.
The tragedy, he told me that he had to send back 2,000 casuals. The majority of that workforce comes from Kibera. Where do you think those 2,000 people are? Where are they? And take that and extrapolate to the other developers.
Hinga spoke during the launch of the Architectural Association of Kenya's Status of the Built Environment Report for July to December 2019. Alex Mwangi, NTV.
Kenya and the United States have expanded their bilateral air transport agreement, allowing airlines from both countries to set up and operate air cargo hubs in either country, I beg your pardon. The amendment, signed by the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for Economic and Business Affairs, Manisha Singh, and Kenya's Transport CS, James Macharia, will see national flag carrier Kenya Airways fly cargo from the United States and a third nation without needing to stop in the U.S. Now, the agreement, which also grants U.S. airlines reciprocal rights to serve Kenya, is expected to offer airlines from the two countries greater flexibility to meet their cargo and express delivery customers and needs more efficiently. It's all systems go for the energy generator Kengen's exploits in Ethiopia as the company widens its footprint across the East African region. Chief Executive Officer Rebecca Miano says the transportation of equipment took place in December and the company is now looking forward to embark on energy generation. The venture into Ethiopia follows Kengen's winning of tenders to drill geothermal wells in the country.
We have unpacked the rig, we have rigged up, and now we are working towards spudding the first well, and we'll be able to start the drilling of the first well. It's an opportunity to expand in the region. This is in line with our strategy of diversification, but more importantly, being able to add value to the region.
The ethanol plant of Mumbia's Sugar Company has resumed operations after 6 months of being non-functional, raising hopes that the miller could be getting back to business. Speaking during the launch of the plant, Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya said the commencement of plant operations will be followed by the revival of the sugar factory, which is expected to be in full capacity in 1 year. In the financial year that ended June 2017, the sale of ethanol generated 794 million shillings worth of revenue for Mumias, accounting for 38% of the company's total revenue.
We are sure in 1 year, Mumias will be where it was before, producing full capacity. I don't want any politicians to come here and interfere with the operations.
Let us work together for the people of this area. Okay? Ultimately, what we do has to result into some positive results for the people. Okay? That is the only time we can go back to them and show our faces.
Now, besides fiscal consolidation, efficient deployment of financial resources towards projects with higher returns has been cited as the key challenge for the government in 2020 if economic growth is to accelerate. The World Bank projects that GDP growth in 2020 will range between 5.8 to 6%. This emerged at a forum hosted by NCBA in Nairobi on Thursday to discuss the 2020 economic outlook.
If we have GDP growing at 5%, it tells you something about the growth accounting. Let's forget about the fact that most of it was debt-driven, in the sense that, look, government invested in huge infrastructure. I think the choices that were made about where to push that money has left us to think that actually the opportunity cost of an infrastructure-driven approach to debt, which is capital intensive, as opposed to the fact that we have huge pools of labor, relatively huge pools of labor, is why some of that money and some of that new value did not end up in the pockets. And for that reason, that's why qua ground things are different.
Our big red light is in policy coordination for the medium term. And that is very seriously worrying. There's no point in beating about the bush. We have a fire burning on the fiscal side. When you have that situation and a flexible exchange rate, the heavy lifting of the economy is made by diverting debt to private sector-led growth.
Let's now take a look at the financials. Business is done. I am Wangi. Good night.
Inakwambia bibi kuna mdenge fulani bibi hapo na nywele refu yani. Kuna ngoko fulani bibi amemechali yake hadi So jadi madonna na kutupinya mtu mbao. Mimi nimemjenga dhao gari ilikuwa salasa akaniambia nimjenge 17 hapa tena 30 yangu.
The way this position is tiring. Nimechoka.
What's that? Ni shosho fulani hapa hivi.
Ati shosho.
Call for long at 1 shilling 50 cents to all networks.
Cartelo.
Dial star 544 hash to subscribe. Telkom, moving with you.
Heaviness and a burning inside, it could be heartburn.
Kiungulia na kuvimbiwa? Ino inatibu ndani ya sekunde 6 na inatuliza dalili 6 za kiungulia. Kwa hivyo unaweza kuburudika bila kikomo. Ino, tibu haraka kiungulia na tumbo kuvimba.
Meru County Government brings you the first ever Mount Kenya Mountain Running Championship on 22nd February 2020. Come run for a cause to fight cancer, boost environmental conservation, and promote Meru County as a tourist destination. The proceeds from this run go towards the building of the first ever Cancer Institute in Meru Level 5, which will be used to do research on cancer, create awareness, advise on preventive measures, offer diagnosis and treatment. Register to be part of the event at www.mountkenyarun.co.ke. Challenging the heights.
What do you see on the horizon? They say how you start your decade will determine how the rest of it will be. Imagine a decade full of opportunities, investment being one of them. Do you want a place to feed your mind, body and soul? A place to unwind every day, where you can get your health and fitness goals attained? A secure place for your family, a center for quality academic goals for your kids, or perhaps a place to connect with your friends? Well, you can get all this and more at Amani Ridge, the place of peace, just 20 kilometers from the CBD. Call us today on 0790 300 300 or visit www.optivan.co.ke.
Welcome to our big family. You see, in this family, we have fun together and we look out for each other because we care. We share whatever we have. We protect and support each other. Welcome home, where we love and care for each other. We're so excited that you're joining us.
Welcome to the new member of our Nivea family. New Nivea Petroleum Jelly Essence, enriched with glycerin for long-lasting moisture and protection.
Continues right here on NTV tonight, and of course, let's go international. Across the borders, and Malawian President Peter Mutharika has slammed the decision of the Constitutional Court to annul his re-election, but promised to run in a fresh ballot as ordered by the judges. Now, the court ruling favored the opposition bid by declaring Mutharika as not duly elected, citing massive and widespread irregularities. Mutharika has, however, vowed to appeal the annulment. Seeking direction on the lacuna currently experienced in the county. He explains that Beatrice is not seeking to fill that position. Time now for a short break. We'll have sports next.
Your multi-bet is on its way to hit the bullseye. Oh, you lose one match, but only in Mozart. Mozart Refund, lose one game, get your cash back. Make a decision. Terms and conditions apply. Over the years, Camry has grown to become a world-renowned medical research institution. Join us on the 10th February 2020 as we celebrate our 40th anniversary. The hallmark of the anniversary celebrations is the 10th Camry Annual Scientific and Health Conference taking place between 11th and 13th February 2020 at the Safari Park Hotel, Nairobi. Camry will also have a free specialized medical camp in various counties across the country. Visit our website for more information.
Its breathable surface, developed with airsoft technology, is very soft and provides the best Molfix skincare.
I've found the best diaper for my baby's sensitive skin.
All babies deserve a high-quality diaper. You should also try Molfix.
Kiambu Town MP Honorable Jude Jomo made these revelations.
Nikamwambia gavana, ile kitu nataka kuambia hatuwezi ongea hapa. Kaniambia kuja nikuonyeshe. Akaniigiza kwa choo.
The moment Jude Jomo started by Bwana Governor, ile njia ambayo tunaona sio mzuri, badilisha. Waitito akaangalia akajua huyu anataka kuongea mbolea.
But actually I did ask Moi, can you be Joshua?
And he refused.
Yeah, and he kept quiet. He refused to commit himself.
That's because he was Daniel. Now,
The Wicked Edition, every Friday from 7:30 p.m.
Do you want a place to feed your mind, body and soul? A secure place for your family? A center for quality academic goals for your kids? Call us today on 0790 300 300.
NTV Sport, in association with Mozart Bet. SMS NTV to 29990.
Welcome to NTV Sport. I'm Watson Karuma. Now, the kit for the national team to the 2020 Tokyo Olympic Games has been unveiled, and the reaction are, well, a mixed bag of complaints and accolades. The kit, which has a series of hexagon outlines in Kenyan flag colors, has been criticized by many to be poorly designed and lacked a Kenyan theme. The Oregon-based company is the official kit supplier of the National Olympic Committee of Kenya, and the global media launch in New York City also featured other national teams, including USA, Brazil, and Nigeria. The new kit designs will also be launched in Kenya come April. Meanwhile, Nike has launched a mass-market version of its controversial Alpha Fly prototype shoe that it says complies with the new World Athletics rules. We showed the new kit to a number of Kenyans, and, well, here are their reactions.
I think that it's not that pretty. I don't think it's great. It doesn't portray really the Kenyan, you know, the Kenyan swag. Let me say swag, yeah.
Hiyo kit hapana, ijanifurahisha. Unaona kama ile vile ya kitambo ilikuwa imeandikwa Kenya na namba hapa. Sijaona kitu kama hiyo, nini inatutambulisha kama Kenya hapo.
So even if me I'm a Kenyan and I look at the athletes there, I will recognize them as a Kenyan.
Hii kitu naona ni smart sana. Iko well presented, colors Kenya, we love Kenya, iko fine sana.
Si sawa kwa sababu haina sura ya Kenya. Hiyo ingine ilikuwa na bendera ya Kenya, kwa inaonyesha Ukenya.
Kama kuna mtu alipeana kama donation hiyo uniform, arudishe. Afadhali hata tuchange tununue uniform. Afadhali tuambie raia wale shabiki wa wakimbiaji tupewe mchango, tuchange tununue uniform nzuri ya wakimbiaji wetu. Hiyo uniform ni uniform ya mwisho kabisa. Yaani ile kwa kikali tunasema negligence kabisa.
Game biscuits will not affect the performance of our athletes. Let us not come to the social media and ignore what has happened actually for the case of kids.
Well, now let's take a walk down memory lane, because that is where some of these Kenyans are drawing inspiration from. And let's see how the previous kits worn by Team Kenya during the Olympics, from the 1968 Summer Olympics in Mexico City to David Rudisha's Olympic triumph in London, as well as the Rio Olympics. Kenya first participated at the Olympic Games in 1956. Of course, the uniforms there are in black and white, and had sent athletes to every Olympic Games since then, except for the boycotted 1976 and 1980 Games. Kenya's best performance was at the Beijing Olympics, where Team Kenya bagged 16 medals, 6 gold, 4 silver and 6 bronze. Kenya went on to win 13 medals in the London and Rio Olympics, with the Olympics returning to Tokyo, where it was held back in 1964 when Kenya bagged only 1 medal, a bronze. The guys on the sports desk hope that this striking new kit will delete the bad memories. Now, the national sevens rugby team will be aiming to rectify mistakes they made at the Hamilton and Sydney legs of the World Series. The squad has 2 weeks to prepare before leaving for the Los Angeles Sevens, and this comes amid concerns by rugby stakeholders as to whether there are issues within the squad that could be affecting their play on the field. Sean Cardovillis reports.
following a disappointing outing at the Sydney Sevens over the weekend, where they picked up only 1 point. The Kenya Sevens rugby team will be seeking to bounce back at the 5th round of the Sevens World Series in Los Angeles, the USA. Shujaa are in Pool B alongside South Africa, Ireland and Canada.
I'm happy with the way we've gone. Obviously I want to win games, but I know there's going to be a few teething problems along the way.
Despite the disappointment in Sydney, Shujaa will be encouraged after bagging a first win over the Blitzbokker since the Cape Town Sevens in 2015 at the Hamilton Sevens the week before. Unlike the New Zealand and Australian legs of the World Series, the Los Angeles event will be a men's-only affair and will therefore revert to the format where the top 2 teams in each pool qualify for the quarterfinals.
I'm not worried with what is happening in the squad because this is something that we have experienced before. For us, it's just to pick ourselves up and to be able to get it right at the end of the day.
With the mixed results from the 2 legs in Hamilton and Sydney, there has been a lot of speculation on social media as to whether there are issues within the squad.
It makes me laugh when people talk like that. So, hey, the team and I know where we're going. Good as gold, I'm happy.
Kenya dropped 1 place to lie 11th with 26 points heading into the North American legs in Los Angeles and Vancouver. Kenya Sevens skipper Andrew Omonde is a doubt for the legs after he got injured in Sydney, with Oscar Oma and playmaker Sami Oliech, along with utility back Dennis Ombachi in contention for a place in the squad, having trained with the rest of the team last month. Sean Carter-Villas, NTV.
Now, Africa Boxing Union middleweight champion Rayton Boom Boom Okwiri is optimistic that he will secure an Olympic ticket during the qualification championship, which will be held in Dakar, Senegal, later this month. As Joshua Makori reports, Okwiri, who participated in the Rio Olympics in 2016, is in the national team, currently in a training camp in Nanyuki.
After taking part in Rio Olympics in 2016 and lost to Moroccan Mohamed Rabi in the round of 16 welterweight bout, Africa Boxing Union middleweight champion Rayton Okwiri has a dream to fulfill in the upcoming Tokyo Olympics. But first, he has to secure a ticket for Tokyo Games.
Sijamaliza mission yangu Olympics. Ndio maana unaona nimerudi tena kutoka kwenda kuwakilisha Kenya katika Olympic. Nataka nikienda kwa Olympics niweze kupata medal. Hiyo ndio itakuwa ndoto yangu itakuwa imetimia vizuri.
After Rio Olympics, Okwiri has learned many lessons going forward.
Najua kitambo najua nilikuwa nafanya vitu sikuwa najua training gani mtu anastahili ndio akue maybe strong maybe na speed, lakini sasa hivi nimekuwa in different training camps na nimelearn vitu mingi, so the experience na hizo vitu nimekuwa nikilearn huko nikiziapply kwenda huko Tokyo, nafikiri vitu zitajibu. Manake pia ukiangalia Rio nilihydrate sana, niliweza kukata weight sana na nilikuwa toka 79 mpaka 69, so kutoa kilo 10 kwa mwili ilikuwa ni shida, lakini sasa at least now niko 75 now nitafeel comfortable.
The 33-year-old will be gunning for a middleweight ticket in the qualifiers in Dakar, Senegal, between the 20th and 29th of February. But where did his boxing journey start?
Hapo Makande Mombasa, hapo nilianza boxing. So mwezi 2006 nikajipata kwa timu ya under 20 ya Kenya, na mpaka sasa mimi nimetimia kwa timu ya Kenya. Nimekaa miaka 11 ni beaten hapa Kenya. Nimeshinda All African Games gold medalist, Lions Cup gold medalist, nimeshinda ABU African Boxing Union belt niko nayo, na African qualifier pia mimi qualifier ile iliyopita 2016 mimi ndio gold medalist bado, lakini kwa different weight category ya 69 kg.
Joshua Makori, NTV Sport.
All the best to the boxing team. Now, Kenya has been pulled in tough groups for the second round of the Africa Olympic Games beach volleyball qualifiers. Kenyan girls coach Sami Mulinge, the team is in Pool C alongside Nigeria, Cape Verde, Democratic Republic of Congo and Zambia. Round 2 of the qualifiers are scheduled for March 5th and 7th to be held in Nigeria. 20 teams have been divided into 4 pools of 5, where the top 2 from each pool will qualify to the finals among the best teams in the continent. The national men and women's beach volleyball teams finished second in the first round of the sub-zonal qualifiers.
Now, the Los Angeles Clippers beat Miami Heat 128-111 to retain their second spot at the Western Conference standings at the Staples Center. Paul George and Landry Shamet each scored 23 points as Kawhi Leonard added 14 points, 9 assists and 7 rebounds for the Clippers in its third consecutive win. Derrick Jones Jr. tallied a career
SMS NTV to 29990.
Mozo Refund, lose one game, get your cash back. Make a decision. Terms and conditions apply.
Well, I'm jumping the gun because, it's day one. But Mijungu has something about that national kit. I don't mind it, to be honest. And I'll tell you why. Let me explain why.
Okay.
I'll tell you
Please
why. You see, that kit, whenever we have the Kenyan athletes running and there's a crowd of athletes running, it stands out. And we don't have to ask, where are the Kenyan athletes?
Exactly. That's the reason why I'm opposed to the new kit.
Why?
It looks hideous. Actually, it looks like your shirt and your tie.
Does that mean it's hideous?
It looks really bad.
No.
But I will stand with the old kit for any reason, Watson. I don't know why Nike needed to have the new one. I don't know the policy. You have covered athletics all over the world, but that kit for me is a no-no.
Honeycombs, maybe. I don't know.
Probably. That's what they wanted to achieve with it.
All right.
I'll let you do it. Thanks, Watson. And thank you for watching NTV tonight. And special thanks to our sign language interpreter tonight, David Agondo. And right after this, in fact, we've eaten into his time, Mark Masai, with the panel of the eminent, the people before us in the newsroom. And today is the good, the bad, and the ugly of covering the retired and late President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi. Dorothy Kweu, a veteran, Joseph Warungu, Martin Masai, and of course Caleb Amisi and Yusuf Washira. They're all here for Mark Masai's press pass tonight. So Mark is right there starting somewhere. Oh, Mark is already here. Time to go. Have a good night.
This is NTV.
Kiambu Town MP Honorable Jude Jomo made these revelations.
Nikamwambia governor, ile kitu nataka kuambia hatuwezi ongea hapa. Akaniambia kuja nikuonyeshe. Akaniigiza kwa choo.
The moment Jude Jomo started by Bwana Governor, ile njia ambayo tunaona sio mzuri, badilisha. Waitito akaangalia akajua huyu anataka kuongea mbolea.
But actually I did ask Moi, can you be Joshua?
And he refused.
Yeah, and he kept quiet. He refused to commit himself.
That's because he was Daniel. Now,
The Wicked Edition, every Friday from 7:30 p.m.
Do you want a place to feed your mind, body, and soul? A secure place for your family? A center for quality academic goals for your kids? Call us today on 0790 300 300.
There is one God in the Hallelujah. She sees cheese. She sees cheese. Cheese. Nasikia uko na kipara smooth hadi nyuki inakuja kuslide nasema zui. Nasikia una masikio kubwa hadi ukipita Somalia una block jua.
So do you use mincemeat for burgers?
Yes, they use mincemeat for burgers.
Need to outline the stem of the tree.
Gary! Oh, Gary! Have you seen Gary?
No.
Nope.
Nope.
Gary's been snail mapped.
It's just one touch.
With Lipa na M-Pesa, you get more.
Lipa na M-Pesa.
Every 100 shillings spent on Lipa na M-Pesa earns you an entry into the draw. Do more with Lipa na M-Pesa.
Every week we bring you Jam Down, and you know kama kawaida tunakupatia the best of reggae and dancehall music. So we give you the best of vibes mtaani. Na unajua pia mtu yangu lazima tukupatie interviews from international countries. And you know I'm talking about Jamaica. This comes only on Jam Skype. But unajua pia show iezi malizika bila wenzetu. And I'm talking about Kaskala and More Spice.
Wale wa radio Siwanga area Nation FM toka saa 1 hadi saa 4 tukikuletea nothing but hot topics na mangoma kali. Good music and good vibes. They call me MC Nyawochi.
And they call me Miss Katiwa from 10 p.m. up until midnight. Remember the hashtag is JamDownKE right here on NTV.
Don't go nowhere.
Just move to the next level with the Daily Nation. Every day, every Monday, Junior Sport will move you to the top of your class with KCPE revision papers. To move to a healthier, fitter, and more conscious you, read The Healthy Nation every Tuesday. My network will inspire your career, your passion, your biashara, and your network every Friday. Just move to the truth.
Health is a human right, and science facilitates the enjoyment of that right. Healthy Nation is an informative and insightful pullout on matters health and science. Join the conversation. Get your copy of Healthy Nation this and every Tuesday, only in the Daily Nation. Powered by Nation Media Group and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
In your paper this week, Museveni's Age Test. East African Court of Justice to rule on Uganda's presidential age and term limits this Friday. The long wait for Naivasha cargo train. Not a single good train has pulled into the station more than a month after President Uhuru Kenyatta launched freight operations. Locusts, excessive rains, and elections. East Africa countries face the perfect storm for economic slowdown. Tanzania SGR countdown. Dar to Morogoro standard gauge rail to undergo first formal test run this May. Plus our opinion leaders. The Nile solution. How Ethiopia's mega dam can be filled without upsetting Sudan and Egypt by Mahmoud Tekuya. Race against time. Search on for coronavirus vaccine as infections surge. Outlook. The magazine. Con artists' paradise. Fake art dealers making a killing online. The East African, understanding the region.
Ilizae kama ajalema.
Serikali leta dawa gani?
It's almost a year, nothing has been done.
I just need some form of information.
Dr. Mugo Wairimu first hit the headlines when a video clip showing him raping an unconscious female patient in his clinic.
Wale wanaohusika pia wanajulikana lakini hawashikwi.
With the puzzle surrounding the sugar saga yet to be cleared.
How many times were you sexually abused?
Like 3 times.
How was a convicted child molester allowed to set up a children's home in the country?
NTV News. Bold, balance, authoritative. This is NTV.
Good evening and welcome to Press Pass. It's 22 minutes past the hour, a bit past our time, but we will make your wait worth it because I'm in the midst of legends, veterans in the industry. You'll meet them in just a few seconds. But first, this is what's the focus on Press Pass tonight.
I was really scared. I was scared stiff. This is a Kiswahili service student.
Has Moi been sanitized? On Press Pass tonight, we speak to journalists who were in the newsroom.
They wanted me to read.
When
yangu kulingana na mambo ya media naye nisingatia sana kitu kimoja tu. Wamesahau mambo mengine. Watoto wamekufa huko Kakamega na hakuna kuongea ya hiyo maneno ya watoto.
Has all the coverage on the death of retired President Moi overshadowed the news on the untimely death of 14 Kakamega children? We get your views. Welcome to Press Pass. And right next to me is Dorothy Kwewu. They're all veteran journalists. I'll just give their names. Dorothy Kwewu is not a stranger on this panel, and it actually happens to be her birthday. Happy birthday. She turned 16 today, and we're glad that she chose to celebrate her birthday with us on Press Pass. Happy birthday, Dorothy. Next to her is my namesake, the first man I've met with my name, Martin Masai. And as Lee Njiru and many people have been talking about his relation possible to the late President Moi, we will find out. He is the editorial director at Mbaito FM and had worked at Kenya Times for many years and has some experiences to share. And right next to him is Yusuf Washira, also not a stranger on this panel. He is a veteran photojournalist, has followed the late President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi over the years in his work as a journalist. And next to him is Caleb Atemi. He is a biographer as well as a former editor here and bureau chief in various regions of the country. And right next to me is Joseph Warungu, another veteran who is currently a consulting editor at NTV, has worked at KTN. He was a founding journalist at KTN and has also worked at BBC to set up BBC Africa there, and has decided to come back and train us because we have a lot to learn. And so let's get started with your views. And from different parts of the country, and to be specific, we asked a few people from Kisii, from Murang'a, and Mombasa, Kisumu, Eldoret, and we thank all our correspondents who got their views. And we asked, since the story of the death of retired President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi broke on Tuesday, it has dominated the news despite other developments of the day. Here's what people had to say.
Media is focusing too much, sometimes a whole day, on only one subject, the death of our former president. If we can make the whole country to go at a standstill, simply because we are mourning one individual, it is not very good.
kusema ati media inatumia wakati mwingi kuleta maneno ya Moi itakuwa ni vibaya kwa watu wanasema hivyo, kwa sababu wakati huu mambo ile iko ni mambo ya Moi, na unaona wanaleta mambo ya Moi na mambo ya watoto waliokufa Kakamega.
Naona ni kama media imeangazia sana mambo ya kifo na Moi kuliko kutupea habari zingine zinazofanyika nchini. Kwa mfano ile kisa ya wale watoto wenye waliangamia huko Kakamega. Tunafaa tuambiwe venye zinaendelea, maybe ni wamefikia wapi, lakini kila saa ukiangalia TV, gazeti, redio ni Moi, 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 Moi.
Chenye mimi naona sana, watu wa magazeti kwa ukweli, hata redio, TV, wapi, unapata tu ni maneno ya Moi. Moi ndiye alikuwa mtu mzuri, upande mwingine pia akawa upande mtu mbaya kidogo, unaona. So upande wa magazeti pia kutoa maneno ya Moi sasa inafaa wawache Moi pia, tuache Moi aende apumzike pole pole.
We had 2 occasions in Kenya which happened the same week. That was the death of the children in Kakamega, the school children, and also the Moi's one. You see in each and every occasion, newspaper, television, social media, people are only concentrating about Moi, whereas 14 children who were majorly, most of them dead, others were injured. No one even considered about them.
Ndio baadaye angazia mambo ya mtu ambaye kwamba ashastaafu, mtu pengine hata sasa ni marehemu. Tunataka tuangaziwe watu ambao kwamba wanaendelea na maisha yanayotuhusu sisi wa Kenya.
We need to focus more on the growing part of Kenya. Kenya itaendelea tu hata kama imekufa. Hizo stories za hao watu wenye walikufa, watoto wenye walikufa Kakamega. We still need to mourn with those families because it's also a big loss for the families, for the school and for the county.
Mimi naona kwamba kwa sababu ile kazi Moi alifanya, ile maendeleo ile kwa miaka yake 24 yenye alifanya, inabidi media yote Kenya ifocus kwa kazi yenye Moi alifanya. Kuna watu ambaye ni generation baada ya Moi, watu ya 2000, watu ya kuja pande wako kuona Moi, nataka wasikie kwa media saa hizi, kwa sababu after Tuesday maybe after Wednesday maybe hakutakuwa na nafasi nzuri ya kusikia maneno ya Moi. Hii ni wakati mzuri ya wananchi wadogo kusikia maneno ya Moi, kwa sababu Moi alifanya kazi mingi.
Umepotea sana kwa mambo ya Moi, sababu unaweza kupata kama juzi watoto waliumia Kakamega. Unapata our next president, deputy president anakimbia huku na huku kushughulika. Nao wanasiasa wengi sasa wameenda kuishi kwa Moi, kukula na watu naumia hapa chini.
Views from different parts of the country, and I'd like to thank all our correspondents who made that possible. And as you were listening, I'll go across the panel tonight and your views as you were listening. Dorothy, why should people care about what happened with the former statesman actually still, and the children, the balance of this all?
They should care, Martin. Mark.
It's okay, I understand you're in the middle of us.
Double M.
Yes.
Okay. They should care because these are both very important happenings. There's somebody who has ruled a country or presided over the governance of a country for 24 years, even though he has been out of the scene for quite a number of years, 18 to be precise, cannot be wished away. And we also know that he has continued to wield a lot of clout in the background, even in his sunset years.
Okay. To Martin, is the dominance justified in your view?
I see justification in a sense because Moi is no ordinary person, the history of this country. You need to look at Moi as a fellow who bestrode this country as a colossus. This man was 12 years as vice president, 24 years as president, and he has other years in the Legislative Council, member of parliament and as a minister. This is a man who has defined life of so many people in this country. And so I really would understand when people make noise, because many of the people around may not know that history. But people also need to understand issues of news values, understanding how media works, setting the agenda. I know that there are concerns about the death of 14 children. Is a tragedy that has happened. And I think as I went through the newspapers, I may have seen acres of pages with so much copy about Moi.
Yes.
And maybe
an update here and there.
Yeah, about the children. There could be concerns, but I think Kenyans ought to understand that I think Moi will never die again. And really, this is a man who cannot just be wished away.
Wachira, I'm sure you saw this. People, the layman, sees this as one elderly, 95-year-old. In fact, he lived to his full life, and 14 children, untimely death. Where is your priority as newsmen? Please explain it.
Personally, as a person who deals with images, the moment that former president died, I immediately conceptualized his life that he led while ruling this country, and even before as a vice president. So I had him working as a leader of this country. And on the other hand, as an image person, I started looking at the 14 children trampled in that incident.
Kakamega, yes.
Kakamega. And I felt instantly when after the 14 were announced to have gone through that, I looked at Moi and his history of maziwa ya Nyayo for the children, and then the number of schools that he raised money to put up schools from primary level to university level. And wherever Moi went for a state function, a political function, the child was always dominating the terrain. Either he would stop to greet them, or they will come in front of him to sing as choir and so forth.
In essence, you're saying he loved the children.
He loved the children,
many people knew him for that.
And therefore, to me, I felt, and I still feel, that we should balance. We should present.
Was it balanced as is? That's what I want to get out from you.
No, it's not.
Where was it tilt?
It's tilted on His Excellency.
All right. Would you make the same call, Bona Caleb Temi, as our boss, if you were still the boss here at NTV or at NMG?
Our Nigerian relatives say that a great Iroko tree has fallen. Such trees, they don't fall every day. Mugumo trees don't fall every day. It falls once in a long time. Moi has been with us in politics, total probably 36 years, 12 as a VP, 24 as a president. And there's no politician who can show me among the prominent ones, from Raila Odinga to Kalonzo to Ruto, who was not touched by Daniel Arap Moi. Kibaki, all of them, name them, they all went through his hands. So it's unfortunate that, as a news editor, for instance, when you have a big story of the kids perishing and Moi dies, the pages just change. It's not your wish. It's news value. And when you talk about balance,
yes,
there's only so much you can say about the death of the children, because it's still a matter of an investigation. What more can you say, apart from the 14 have died, they're trampled upon, police are going to investigate? The other acres still have to go to Moi, because you can't give those children 20 pages. Right. So the issue of balance really doesn't arise. I think it just happened that they died. It happened at the time when the Iroko tree has fallen.
All right.
And the shadow fell on the children's story.
Warungu, we agonized about this when we were trying to plan the rundown for the bulletins. Would you make a different call now, after seeing the complaints from many people, that you buried the children of Kakamega under the news of the late Moi?
It's unfortunate, the tragedy in Kakamega, and I was torn as a journalist because it's a very unusual death with these kids in Kakamega. But on the other hand, President Moi, this is a man who's synonymous with the history of, contemporary history of Kenya.
Yes.
A lot of us who grew up in the Moi era did not imagine that this man could actually die. The way he was positioned, in fact, we had a law that it was almost an offense to imagine and encompass the death of the president. So for that to happen, it was like, okay, really? So it's a humongous event. This man, literally what, half the years that this country has been in existence since independence, Moi was a feature of that.
Right.
So I think I would balance. I think I would still lean on giving prominence to the death of a head of state because, you know, we've only lost 2 in 56 years. And then we would still have time. The story of the children is still going to stay with us because we now have to dig into what happens, how to prevent future tragedies like this. So Moi is still prominent. But I think we ought to have balanced it and made them share a little bit of the space. And don't forget that at the same time in Kakamega, we've had this tragedy.
And don't forget coronavirus facing the country and even the globe, and many asking questions about where are we in terms of our security. But this was a comment by someone who you have worked with, I'm sure, a peer, Macharia Gaido. He said, watching TV talking heads, such as us, united in positive reminiscences of Moi era. That's fine. The man had his good sides. But what about Umar Ulenin and Mwandawiro, Paddy Onyango, Mtumishi, Kathangu, and many others who endured torture, jail, and exile? Let's tell the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'll start with and anyone can jump in here. Atemi, do you agree with this statement?
I think Moi has been hit so many times. If anybody were to be angry in this panel, I'll be very angry with Moi because I suffered incarceration. I spent days and months, whatever, in various police stations, and his regime was a terror. Literally, he was a terrorist to his own people. But I think we've told so many stories about Moi's bad side, and there's barely anybody telling us about the little good side of him. Because no human being is 100% evil or bad. Mm-hmm. So I think Moi's bad story has been told and retold for decades. That when we come up with a little bit of his better side, I think we give people a different
and anyone can jump in because it sounded, at least what people are complaining about is celebratory tone.
Yeah, I personally look at Moi as a coin. Moi has 2 sides. He had heads and tails. And it just depends on what you see when you have tossed this coin. And I think probably sometimes many people toss and see the heads, the positive side of the man. And others, when they toss it, this coin, they still see the tails. There is no way a man who was not an angel would preside over state of affairs of a country for such a long time and all of us like him in equal measure. It can't just be. And I think it would be foolhardy for all of us to look at Moi entirely as a bad person or entirely as a good person. But I think you need to measure then a man by his deeds. If you put it on a scale, look at what Moi did for this country, what he didn't do for this country, then you make your own decision. And I think the actions of this man, whether it was good or bad, I think history will really judge him. But I think as a person, I saw Moi as a person who meant good things for this country. But in the course of things, other bad things happened. And I think he was also alive to that. And as he left office, he was sincere enough to say, guys, sorry. And I think very few of us.
Many say sorry doesn't quite cut it because there's the issue of accountability. And that's what everyone is asking for media, at least. Keep telling these stories. Don't just put up a praise chorus of this man who's remembered by some as being, a tyrant.
Personally, I would like to go a little further, and more so at the time when Moi became president of this country. Because we need to look at the genesis of the tyrant, as we would wish to call him. Actually, Moi started on a very good note. Actually, there was euphoria when Moi became president. And I remember an aunt who visited town from Mombasa at that time talking about how she witnessed the people of Mombasa literally lifting his limousine. I didn't see it, but she was there and said they literally carried his limousine. That was the euphoria, you know, that they felt this is a great man. So I would then want to ask, what happened? How did the tyrant evolve? And it is there that we must also pay some attention, because it wasn't easy. There were odds against him. He was a passing cloud. And I think the last straw was the attempted coup, you know. Then he realized he was threatened. And I know that anybody who feels threatened will react. But otherwise, I think before the attempted coup, Moi was generally a gentleman whom many loved.
But after and for the greater part of his reign, many might say, you know, he ruled with an iron fist. Washira, where do we strike the balance? He has just died and his family is in mourning, and there's a place for, you know, African respect, you know, mheshimu wacha ende zake, and then we can talk about issues further. Where do we place that balance when we have an audience who demand the truth to be put out?
Maybe you can allow me to comment on that before.
Real quick, and then Washira, yes.
Yeah. As an African, and a Luhya at that, we unfortunately or fortunately have this reverence for the dead. The dead may be a demon, but immediately a person dies, you take a back step, you know? You retreat a bit before you start pouring vitriol, you know? Because the feelings are still raw. It's true, Moi was not a saint. We have read and we have seen and we know, and we saw people falling from, I don't know which floor of Nyayo House, you know? And they were not suicides. These were people who were killed. We shall never know whether he ordered their death, because once you are there, you are accountable. So every evil that is meted on the people, you are accountable. But at the same time, there are people who are mourning. And one of our own, professor, no, who is this?
Of own colleagues.
We have this professor, the author of Mbaya Wetu, and the name has vanished.
But carry on with what you're saying, one of our own.
What he said in that book is that when you have a person, you know, your person is your person, you know, Mbaya Wetu, you know. Actually, it is Ken Walibora. Mbaya Wetu. He may be bad, but he's ours, you know. So there are people who are hurting because their father is dead. He may be 90, 95, even 103, but people are hurting. So it's important that we tone down kidogo, you know. We will have all the time to analyze him, but I think we need to pause a bit at this particular moment before we inter him, you know. I don't know, but that is me.
Okay, you've said your part, and I need to take a break. Washira and Joseph and the rest of the panel will continue this discussion because many said as well, guys, media in Kenya, you sanitized the late Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi. Mulimwosha na sabuni. Labda Omo, that's not an advert I'm putting out there, but mulimwosha. And people felt cheated by that particular coverage. We'll be back with your comments and as well sample some of yours. Stay with
we bring you Jam Down, and you know kama kawaida tunakupatia the best of reggae and dancehall music. So we give you the best of vibes mtaani. Na unajua pia mtu yangu lazima tukupatie interviews from international countries. And you know I'm talking about Jamaica. This comes only on Jam Skype. But unajua pia show iezi maliza
area Nation FM toka saa 1 hadi saa 4 tukikuletea nothing but hot topics na magoma kali. Good music and good vibes. They call me MC Jawochi.
And they call me Miss Katiwa from 10 p.m. up until midnight. Remember, the hashtag is JamDownKE right here on NTV.
Don't go nowhere.
Just move to the next level with the Daily Nation. Every day, every Monday, Junior Sport will move you to the top of your class with KCPE revision papers. To move to a healthier, fitter, and more conscious you, read The Healthy Nation every Tuesday. My network will inspire your career, your passion, your biashara, and your network every Friday. Just move to the truth.
An e-slip number or a new establishment code should be used as a reference when making payments to allow for the processing of 2% levy remittance. Remember to file your 2% tourism levy on or before the 10th of each month.
Welcome back to Press Pass. So, did media sanitize the late President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi? You've seen those complaints by many who are following the news, Washira, and what's your take?
Personally, I would go with the thought that Moi, as bad as we saw him for all those years, and as unfortunate as it were right now, he still deserves his place in history and some respect in line with our African traditions. But that does not stop the country from having a conversation about what he did, how, and what provoked him to do. For example, I know most of the things, most of the power that he wielded around was based on the existing constitution, which he found on the desk, so to speak. He couldn't do much because he had a transition to drive, such that by the time the country was having this desire, burning desire to change the constitution, by the time we are getting to that level, so many, Moi had found himself having too many enemies in all sorts of corners for all sorts of different reasons. Again, look at the environment in Africa at the time Moi took over, within the 24 years. Africa was surrounded, was ruled by coups, dictators and what have you. You had one side Sani Abacha, on the other side we had Mobutu, Kukubanga or Ingoho or something like that. Something like that. And in the middle of all this, Kamuzu Banda was there. There was Kenneth Kaunda. And all this, at the end of the day, these are wazes, and they influence one another. So, like my colleagues are saying, the history should not be downplayed, but the respect we must sustain. Let me give you an example as an image person again. Because of all the bad, the ills that was attached to Moi, true or not true, I found myself working for the Daily Nation, the biggest newspaper in East Africa there, to date. I found myself in a very tricky situation. One, Moi's regime perceived Daily Nation as the primary enemy fighting his regime through foreigners, okay? And therefore, we were enemies as a corporate and as individual writers and so forth. Now, on our editorial policy was, and still is, I think, if I'm not wrong, was that you must bring the best story and you must bring the best image. Now, I happened to find myself promoted to a chief photographer. And that, to me, called for an overview. An overview of the presidency image. The presidency as an institution and the person running that office.
Okay.
Where did I find myself? 95% of Moi's stories coming out, things were negative. The coffee prices are bad, the tea and the roads are bad, and so on. Okay? That is one side of Moi. And then Moi would come and say, this is not true, this is propaganda. And when he does it, whenever he did it, he did not hide his feelings. Whether he's at the airport, outside the church, in somebody's wedding, when he was to speak to the public, he picked the current most pressing point to him, to him as a president and as a person, because he's also a person. And he spoke very bitterly about these things. Now, in terms of image, you can imagine what that meant. He is an old person, annoyed, and he's so natural about it, both visually
very raw
and orally. Yeah, he looked very bad and furious, and the media, the Western media, loved this. They would capture that and portray, here you have an African leader, and on the other side you have Mobutu, the other side Kamuzu Banda, and so forth. So for me, what did I do as an individual with a responsibility in a national newspaper? I made sure I am with Caleb Atemi. We are covering a very sensitive story, and Moi has blasted everybody left, right, and center. I would wait. I would take that shot for my record, but in my mind, I would put it in another file and look for a positive, warm picture of the man in that function.
Are you protecting him, making him look good, not the real?
No. I wanted to show. I wanted to show that here is the story, and this is what he said. It's in black and white. But on the other hand, the man also has a human heart.
pictures speak a
So
thousand words.
it was a very.
So some might say you actually killed that story by not giving the exact picture of the day. But that's the story of another day. I can't be the judge of my senior. To Joseph Warongo, to those who are saying NTV, KTN, Citizen, you did us a disservice in this whole sanitizing campaign.
I would say I don't quite agree, and I would sort of go along with Dorothy, because in terms of TV coverage, you've got to distinguish the first day of the incident and day 2 reporting. On the first day of the incident, you really want the details about the man, what has happened, what are people saying about it, the reactions. And I would also make a distinction between marking the death of somebody and celebrating it. I don't think the media was celebrating. That may have come across like that. We were marking the event. It's an important, a significant person who's passed on. We were marking that event. I think it would be really dangerous if we started celebrating. In other words, behaving like KANU, Youth for KANU, YK92 kind of foot soldiers in the media.
Yes.
It is only on the second day that you say, okay, so we've told you what this man was all about. Now let's get a bit real. What was his reign, all about? Then now you can draw out all the dirt. It's a bit too early. Immediately the person has passed on to jump and say, yeah, that he was terrible. You've attended funerals of guys who were bank robbers, and they say, oh, this guy was a gentleman, he loved this and he did that. It's a bit of an African tradition, but it's because, as Dorothy said, it's something that is still fresh in people's minds, so you give it that kind of a chord.
Yes.
But where you start playing maybe praise, almost praise and worship kind of music in favor of a man, which is what, then it becomes really dangerous. So I'm not too sure. I think we could have done better. You still can, ingest a little bit of the 360 flavor of the man to say he was not that much of a saint. But anyway, let's give him his moment.
All right. And Caleb Atemi, you said something during the break, and we need to take another one in a couple of minutes, that perhaps we have served the wrong narrative about Moi in comparison to the founding president.
Yeah, I was saying, see, you have to look at Moi in the context of the country's history in totality. Moi took over from his boss, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, who he served diligently as vice president. And he served him diligently because he remained humble, underwent lots of humiliation from the Kiambu Mafia. They fought him, and in 1976 is what they call the Change the Constitution movement, led by late Karume and Kika Kimani. They wanted to stop, to change the law so that Moi does not act as president for 90 days in the event that the Kenyatta dies. Now, it's a book that I wrote, edited of the late Jeffrey Kareithi, former head of civil service. It's called Cool Under Fire. Kareithi says that when Jomo died, he made a call to the military to go and pick Moi from Kabarak, to bring him to Nairobi for swearing in. Meanwhile, the Ngorokos was dispatched to go and assassinate Moi. They passed each other somewhere in Lanet. These guys are going to kill the man, the guys will come to save the man. So that's the atmosphere under which he took over power. The number two, it was the Cold War. Russia, USSR versus America. Africa was awash with dictators. The whole world was dictatorial. Things we call democracy were neither here nor there. Those were stories that, like folktale. And then he comes in, he's trying to be a good man, plant trees, stop soil erosion. Then a coup happens. Okay? So most people I've interviewed, including the late Gekonyo Kiano, say Moi was a different man until the coup happened. He became a monster. So it's good to contextualize. You just don't condemn him, because compared to Jomo Kenyatta, Moi was an angel. The other guy was a terror. I was telling you, it was like several Shababs put together.
Wow.
His leadership was serious. At least Moi, you could crack a joke or draw a cartoon. You couldn't do that to Jomo Kenyatta. So we've condemned Moi so much as if there was no other president before him.
Yes.
Yeah. So we must carry the log from independence. Say these two characters were both evil or both good. Then we do a comparative study. It will be fair to the man.
All right. And yes, real quick.
But I then think that the best thing is just to present these stories as they are, so that when we have voices that are critical of Moi, those voices are heard. If there are voices that appreciate what Moi did, those voices are heard. And I think that's the fairest the media can get, because those voices are there. And to muzzle any won't be fair. For instance, to chastise the media that you are sanitizing Moi, when people are speaking about the good things he may have done to this country. And there are quite a lot of things that you may quite enumerate and speak about what Moi did. And I think, to be fair, if there are people who are quite aggrieved, let those voices also be given their space.
All right, let's take a break at this point, and when we come back, I want the personal account. In my generation, I feel the worst that we have faced as media is perhaps there's a shutdown, as well as after the swearing in, the parallel swearing in, but there's also that raid in media houses at the Standard Media Group, and we feel that was quite bad. They will tell us what they faced when they were sitting at that newsroom as editors in different media houses at that time. Stay with us.
Cracking comedy. Just move to NTV.
An e-slip number or a new establishment code should be used as a reference when making payments to allow for the processing of 2% levy remittance. Remember to file your 2% tourism levy on or before the 10th of each month.
Mtukufu Rais Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi. That's how bulletins would start. I remember that happening back in the day. Every bulletin would start with something about the President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, whether he was at a church, whether he stopped over, greeted the people along the way from one place to another. And we have come a mighty long way. As a founding journalist at KTN, you were an anchor as well. And it's good to see that this is me in a few years, and you look good. Yes. So you were in an era where you'd have to start the bulletin with Moi, whether you liked it or not. But there's something that changed. What happened?
Yes, actually, it was my time at KBC. I started reading news from around 1984. And we didn't have teleprompters or an auto cue, yes.
My colleague here behind the camera is wondering, he was in the newsroom before we were in the womb.
You imagine that. We've come a long way, so thank God for Moi.
KBC, yes.
And when you're looking at the camera, you only have papers because you didn't have that modern technology, because every single story had to start with His Excellency. And actually, up to today, if you just told me where did President Moi go, the rest I can His Excellency President Daniel Arap Moi today joined fellow worshippers at St. Andrew's Church in Nairobi. Speaking after the church service, he emphasized on the importance of water for the nation and for unity amongst the people. Amongst those who were present was Vice President George Saitoti, the Minister for this, Minister for that, Assistant Minister for this.
Such a template.
DC. 10 minutes of that. So the shift to, we were the founder reporters at KTN when it started in 1990. And we wanted to do things differently. Strangely enough, the person who helped in that revolution was himself the very same editor-in-chief we had at KBC, Hamani Gambi. He was our editor. And we said, we have to tell these stories differently. We have to find a way where the president merits his place on the running order of the news. And the way we did that, and remember these were the days of the campaign for multi-party democracy in the early 90s, was we'd do a very strong feature, maybe somewhere in Western, maybe some Bukusu circumcision ceremony, really good pictures, and run it as story number one, immediately followed by Moi. Maybe he's gone to church, and would listen out. One night, any calls? Nothing. The next day, would do 2 features, story number 3. Until when there were no complaints, you know, we pushed him down. Now he had to warrant his place, and it was a difficult thing to do. And then I remember attending a press conference. The late William Ole Ntimama was Minister for Local Government, and what he announced was a bombshell. I can't remember what the news was, but it was, as I was dashing out, he called me, "Hey, rudi hapa, listen. Mzee, wachia mzee pale." You know, he was saying, "I know this is big news, but can you please make sure that I do not, you know, go above His Excellency." I told him, "No, this one, sir. This is the biggest news today." Yeah. So the ministers themselves were worried when you lead with their news and Moi comes as number 2, that causes problems. Luckily for us, there were no mobile phones, so all the editor had to do was approve the running order. Yeah, do this, yeah, Moi wake up on number 5, then he would disappear. So when the calls come in the newsroom, you're just a young, you say, you know, our editor's not around this year, but where is he? We don't know where he's gone. So, and then the next day the editor would come, he would get those calls, say, "Really? Is that what they did? No, but I left them." You know, he'd make some excuses. Yes. And it was just by stealth, pushing the boundaries slowly until, you know, Moi accepted that he had to make news to be in the news.
Right. And Caleb, there's stories of the president calling the editor in the newsroom. Were they did you get them? And like, what are your experiences in that?
There's only one time when he called the news desk, and I think he must have been bored or something. I picked up the phone. So he asked me who I was. He said, "Une kijana yangu anafanya kazi na gazeti ya ukabila." Ngambia ni mimi mzee. So
gazeti ya ukabila ilikuwa
Daily Nation. So I think he was just trying to find out what story we were running. But I recall when we were still on Tomboya Street, he called in because the story that he was trying to kill. There were comments made somewhere in Mohoroni by I think Alo Aringo, I can't remember exactly who it was. Then Mutegi Njau was. Yes.
Corruption and coffee.
And Mutegi politely told him, "We can't kill the story, sir. This is our job. We are doing a good job. Just we are doing a good job to run the nation."
And nothing happened to him?
Nothing happened. What Moi would do is that the following day, he would condemn you in a public rally. He would call you vinyangariko wa magazeti.
So, gazeti ni ya kufunga nyama didn't just start the other day?
But wherever you went, wherever you walked, wherever you drank, because we used to, journalism and alcohol were synonymous. We were cousins, we first cousins.
Now we're in water. Look how far we come.
They were twins. Identical twins. So wherever you went to drink, there were always 2 or 3 special branch officers watching over you.
And you knew there was special branch.
So there was constant harassment. But what we did, some of us, we turned it into a narrative. We called them our bodyguards. And hey, guys, give those bodyguards of ours some beer. No, give them soda, because beers, we don't want them drunk.
And some would talk to us in a friendly tone. Like we would leave the newsroom around 9, and we decide let's go and have a drink or watch a certain play at National Theatre. National Theatre was the United Nations for the journalists. Those from KBC, those from KT, rivals, that's where we used to centralize ourselves. Mm-hmm. So you release off the tension with the thespians, you laugh it off, yeah? And then after some time, because people are operating on KBS, there are no border borders. And
no Uber, definitely.
Yes, and we were not getting car-loans for the scribes, yeah? So we were depending on KBS, which was very efficient before it was killed later on. So the convergence at National Theatre was particular around certain time, everybody.
For therapy.
And yes, and departure is dictated by the bus timetable.
KBS, yes.
Yeah. So we'll have a mob walking from National Theatre, pick one or two other guys who had private meetings at Central Police opposite. There's a hotel there, and then Sunshik on Tomboy Avenue. And where are we going? We are going towards the Heathrow of Kenya Bus. That is Hilton for the Ngong Road people, Dagoretti area. Kibisu Kabatesi, Tini Njoroges, and myself, we are people of Langata, Nairobi West Langata route. Then you have Solomon Mogera, BBC. You have Whispers, Wahome Mutahi, the late Wahome Mutahi, Mike Ching Mureithi, Mado, the cartoonist, and many other colleagues, and people like music writers like Wagashamba. That route is Eastlands. So where do we meet? We depart from Hilton, one group, the next group at Gill House, Folangata, Nairobi West, and finally, the big city, Eastlands, is at Tusker, yeah, Tusker there. Now, Mark, believe me or not, from National Theatre, each one of us has got bodyguards that will make sure umeingia matatu yako. And another bodyguard will be waiting on your point of arrival.
Special branch officers.
Yeah,
who
yeah.
are basically
They want to
training.
listen to what you are saying.
And particularly who are you meeting? Who are you meeting in between?
That we could say that they're following us technologically, and that's why some people actually hide their cameras here and whatever. That the system or the deep state is watching, and if they're watching, thank you for tuning in. And Martin Masai, your recollection at Kenya Times, which was under the ruling party then, so it must have been easy for you.
Well, it would look easy from far, but it was far from easy in reality.
I love that.
Yeah, because I probably had a little different experience than many journalists. And I've always considered myself as an outsider from newsroom things. I came from out there. I was chased from the field because of politics of multipartyism, that I had to be evicted from my station in Machakos because of politics. Being identified as, the expression then was, mtu wa vidole mbili. Just because you probably push for stories.
Kwa wale wajui, inamaanisha nini mtu wa vidole mbili?
Multi-party campaigner. The idea was that you're probably pushing stories that injure KANU. And in this particular case, there was Masonga Leni land scandal in Ukambani. And so as I pushed that story, I rubbed KANU people the wrong way. And they went to the president to complain. And so one day it was decided that remove that fella from Machakos. And I left Machakos one evening. I came to Nairobi. Philip Ocheng, a very great journalist, resisted dismissing me. He said, let him come, we'll deal with him. So I had to change my name from Martin Masai to Ndei Malasi.
In
I
your
came
bylines?
to Nairobi. Yeah, I changed bylines. Came to Nairobi and was a reporter. The multi-party campaign was on. So I would go to meetings. I'm meeting colleagues. They know me as Martin Masai, but the byline would be different tomorrow. Sometimes I would be deployed to go and cover Moi. And the byline would be different tomorrow. Until I reverted to Martin Masai at the repeal of Section 2A. And with time, I eventually became a normal newsroom. I went to Nakuru to cover clashes and came back as a decision maker in the newsroom. Wow. And then I quite encountered the power of that old man, because there are moments you just pick a phone as news editor and there was that voice. You know, something about Moi is that his voice, without the microphone, was very soft, hoarse and soft. But on the microphone, it would sound like a lion. So you hear, Uni Moi. You know, so he asks you, what is this story? Because in Kenya Times, things were funny. He would know what you are running as a headline story even before you do it. And the issue you asked me personally was a KCC story. So I indicate, yeah, this is what you're running. So you guys know more about KCC than I do. Of course, you not tell him you do. So you keep quiet, and he tells you, you need to know that you need to consult. You see, ideally, if you really want to be there tomorrow, you run the story at your own peril. Really.
I mean, are you telling me that if you run the story, be there in sense, be in the newsroom or be alive?
You'll not be in the newsroom.
Okay.
Probably doing the same job the next day. And you know, the former president was an interesting person. You never know who else he has called within the organization. Or he probably also knows that the news editor is a rank below the editor-in-chief. So when you have gotten that call, you have to sound your bosses about these sentiments, because you don't want it to get on your hands alone.
Did you ever come across this control, Dorothy, or even any one of the colleagues that you remember at that time?
I believe that there were quite a number of things that didn't go right. I may not have had a direct encounter with the head of state in any of the stories I did, but I cannot remove myself from believing that he or his associates had a hand in one of the most scary stories I did, and it never saw the light of day. The public editor, Peter Maura, was our editor-in-chief at that time. And I was doing a story on the Kenya Police Air Wing. And somebody has mentioned this business of being tailed and you don't know. That was scary because I would go, sign out from the office and say, I'm continuing with this investigation. And when I come back, my boss is telling me that, you know, you were at such and such a place. And while I was there, I didn't know that anybody was tailing me. And I went on collecting my notes, and in the end he told me, you know, Dorothy, why don't you just leave that story, you know? Because I think there were too many vested interests in the Kenya Police Air Wing. So that was one story that I remember was killed. There were others which I fought through over months, and they eventually ran. But that one of the Kenya Police Air Wing, you know, that one was scary.
Was killed?
Yeah.
Yes. Real quick, and then Atemi.
Imagine it's easier for a reporter to cover some events incognito, you know, sitting somewhere, hiding somewhere, yeah? But for the cameraman, it's another ball game, yeah?
It's known that you're the nation guy.
Yes. Now, that's it. With Martin, my brother Martin Masai, Kenya Times, Mboka Ndere, they were there as mainly to tame the nation politically. That is not the journalist, I mean, from the other side of decision makers. Kenya Times was supposed to tame the nation. The standard had been toned down. KBC was trying to struggle, as Warungu is explaining, Yeah. Now, nation was the central nerve that is so bad. It's so painful. It's a boil. Imagine a mark on my side as an village person. At the nation, my initial stages, the initial stages of my employment, I spent about 5 or 6 years permanently covering the Mwakenya dissidents. Dissidents, that's the name they were using then, at the High Court, court number 1. That's where they were being brought.
So you became identified with Mwakenya dissidents?
Yes. And those guys managing the security guys managing that section knew me personally, so they would make sure my movement and my photography there was just, you know, terror. And in the newsroom, they want that picture of that dissident, how he was brought in and how he was whisked out into a white waiting car or the prison van and the relatives. It was quite challenging. Now, for say 5, 6 years, you identified with that assignment, okay? So I covered people like Raila coming back and George Anyonas, Koigi Wamweres, all those people at court number 1, the Mwakenya dissidents and others. Now, later on, now as chief photographer, I am to assign my colleagues, assisting the news editor, to assign and to make sure we don't miss that material. And we are working under that harsh environment. Yes. You are seen as a dissident and as a traitor to this country. After doing all that, you have to end up now covering the head of state. Put yourself in my shoes. Yeah? And
do you know how
I had to apply what Warungu has just explained. I had to apply most of the time I applied that technique. The story being written about this person, either it's by Reuters or our local story, it's like this, it's negative.
Okay, let's visit one of the stories that were big. It's a name that remains a black spot in the reign of Moi, and it is the late Honorable Dr. Robert Ouko, politician who served as a foreign minister under the reigns, actually, even within Jomo Kenyatta's government and as well as Moi's government. And there's this particular headline, and I don't know if it brings some memories to you, and if we're looking at it, this is the Sunday Nation of the February the 1990. And basically it somewhat looks at, yes, there is the headline, the horror that was Ouko's body. Your experience from this, where were you and how did you particularly follow this up? I see by Caleb Atemi and Kwendo Opanga.
No, that story redefined my journalism, and it actually made me enemy of state. I became a marked man. What happened was very simple. I arrived at Gotalila. They were searching for the body. Then the police went all over. But I found myself right where the body was, alone.
In what form? Like, just describe.
It's just, what do you call it? Talk about lumps of thick lumps of ash, black ash. The head was the only intact thing that could tell you this was a human body. And the hands, the former hands, what were hands before, were actually bones, because they've been burnt. They were now in what they call in medical terms rigor mortis, like a pugilistic position.
Yes.
The legs were off. Everything, the entire torso was ash. Okay. And then there were, the pistol was there, the jerrycan was there. The things had been laid down neatly, waiting to be discovered. Now, my curiosity was, it was dry season in Koru. The hill was dry, the grass was golden brown. If this body could burn to ashes, how come the fire didn't spread? So what I did, in Moi's days, you had to use the imagery, plenty of imagery. So I had to give the description of the body, the way I saw it. I had to describe the scene, the environment, and then I said in one paragraph, and the fire which consumed the ambulance minister to the bone burnt only a small portion of grass under his trunk. I left it at that. Now the government was trying to sell a theory that Ouko committed suicide. It's in the same Sunday Nation, there was a sidebar.
Yes, right here.
The government explaining things that didn't make sense.
Do not speculate, or you
Yes,
just
yes,
Kenyans.
yes. Now what students did from the University of Nairobi, after reading my story, said, no, wait a minute, this guy, he wasn't killed there. He was killed this one, the body was brought here. So, sparked riots. I had to move from my house and to go and to live to YMCA hostels. Because now, each time I go to the office in Kisumu, the phone would ring. Remember there were no mobiles, there was that big black set on the phone, on the desk. The phone, someone would tell me, when you are telling me, say, unajifanya unajua Kiingereza sana, unaandika mambo ya huko, utafuata hiyo huko. So, every day, you get calls to threaten you that you're going to follow Ouko in his grave because you think you know lots of English.
This is who calling you?
No, I believe the security personnel.
Okay.
So, for about 6 months, I was homeless. But now there was lots of unity in Kisumu those days. So all reporters joined me. The late Thomas Onyata and the late Warambo Wino. We all moved into the hostels for security because now none of us was safe. And then there were terrible riots. The people who died in the Ouko era are not accounted for. The women and girls who were raped and molested are not accounted for. I believe there were hundreds of people who were killed.
Is this a story, in your view, someone who covered it, something that should be followed up or just bury it?
Definitely. That's why I did a piece yesterday in Nation. I said that whatever Moi is, that burden, he's going to the grave with that burden of Ouko on his shoulder. As the head of state, whoever killed Ouko, as the father of the nation, he carries that cross.
Yes.
And I said, ironically, he's being buried on the same day Ouko was plucked from his bedroom.
Yes.
To be murdered. And the pathologist said, actually, if you follow the forensic evidence of the inquiry, this man was tortured. They broke his collarbone, broke his arms, broke his legs, it's called compound fractures, then forced him into a kneeling position and shot him through the head. And set the body ablaze. According to Ian West, who was the Scotland Yard pathologist, they actually burned him, they were actually grilling the body. They would turn the body. It was a what do you call it, a result of constant burning over very many hours. So it's like passing a message to anybody else who was going to fight corruption. Because Ouko was killed, was picked from his house the week he was drafting a report on corruption in Kenya.
And that's the price he had to pay.
Yes. So I think the message was, whoever wants to do like Ouko, we should just leave your face slightly burnt, and the rest of you will be ash.
And did that stop you from your line of duty in terms of a journalist? How did that change your course?
Ironically, in Moi days, the more they beat you, the tougher you became. I think you were like, which animal would we say? You are beaten by the lion, but you still go and, no, like the mongoose. You were like the mongoose. The cobra bites you, but you still move on. Because I remember I would cover the clashes, for instance. And then tomorrow you're arrested, you are taken to court. There's always the same charge. You're charged with publishing malicious and damaging statements to endanger state security. So I've appeared in courts in Kericho, in Kisumu. My cases will disappear.
But this emboldened you in your duty as a journalist.
Actually, you now begin enjoying it.
Wow.
That's the irony.
Yeah.
I'll share some of these later, but I remember one time I was arrested in, just still after the Ouko murder. I was picked from my office by policemen. They came quite a number, about 50 of them. But then I called lawyer, the current MP it's called Olago Aluoch. He came and not to escort me to the police headquarters, because now I'm his client.
Yes.
Now he made a mistake of, I think, was a bit rude to the policeman. They distracted him, and before, I think by the time he turned, I disappeared. This guy had blindfolded me and threw me to Land Rover. I found myself in Kakamega police station. So here I was, they keep you for very many hours, not food. I refused to take the food. They'd rather starve, because they'll kill you. So you don't take the food, don't take the soda. Unakaa tu hivyo njaa. One of the ugliest creatures I ever seen walked into the room with a huge pliers. Tall woman, full of muscle. It's like Mike Tyson times 2, eh?
Yes.
She had a huge pliers. And she tells me that the things I can't mention on camera.
You think you got balls?
Yes, you got 6 balls, eh? Na in Kiswahili. Uko na makende 6. I told her, no, mama, yangu ni moja tu. Lakini ni ya chuma. So the things you go through, you don't know what's ordered your arrest.
Okay, no, let me not pursue that and see what happened. But yes, we'll get to a bit more. Yes, real quick, Dorothy.
Now, please allow me to play the devil's advocate at this point. Of course, that is horrific. And of course, as somebody who had covered Dr. Ouko, especially during the heads of state of the OAU, just a few years before he died, had covered him, had covered his wife, because he was the minister at that time. I was very personally affected by Dr. Ouko's death. I still am. But I would like to put it to the nation that what was happening was a carryover of what had started a lot earlier. This country took off on the blood of its best. And of course, Piogama Pinto died mysteriously, mysteriously, because it was made to be just, it was like thugs, But we know that because of his political stance, this was a state action. I have no evidence, but I have cause to believe that.
But you could see their writing all over it.
I was still a young girl in school at that time. Then come JM, at that time I was a university student, and I know we had an almighty riot whereby the university was actually closed for, I think, 5 months, something like that, because the students became ungovernable. We all rioted, and we had to be sent home, And that was during the first presidency, which means that Baba, as we loved to call him, Baba Moi, was just carrying on what he had inherited. I don't want to say that, therefore, it is excusable. It is not excusable, but...
You want to take us back to actually where the foundations of this was laid?
Yes, that is where the things started. That is where the rain started beating us. And I want to say that even though the new constitution has helped a lot and brought a lot of rights and, this and that, we are not yet out of the wood. I'm a member of the Editors Guild, and I know that less than a fortnight ago, our chairman had to go to police to protest against harassment of journalists. It means that we are still in the woods,
yes,
and that nobody is quite safe who is opposed.
But thank God, yes. But thank God there's no woman with big pliers who's threatening To squeeze one or two pebbles here and there.
That is what I wanted to say, that in as much as we demonize Moi, and there's a lot to demonize him about, let us not forget the genesis of the Moi tyranny.
All right. And there's something you faced while at KTN. You were summoned.
Yes.
We were criticized when we went, we had it easy. When we were told Karibuni Chai, State House, in my generation. You were summoned for something totally different. Tell us what happened.
We were, again, in the heady days of multi-party democracy. And there's a story we put out on KTN, and the following morning, the entire newsroom was summoned to State House. From the chairman of the board to our editor-in-chief, the reporters, the whole team. And we didn't know what we'd been called there for. But I knew things were wrong because I used to travel with Moi quite a bit to a few places, especially outside countries. So I was quite known to some of the outriders and his security team. And I noticed that day they were not even looking at me in the eye, and so we knew this was trouble. And we kept being shifted from one waiting room to another, like 3. Even guys, they're not really talking to you, no one is telling you, your chairman is quiet. And then in walks Moi. I've never seen his eyes so red. You almost thought he had smoked something. And he sits down, breathing heavily, and he doesn't even say, and he said, there's no good morning or anything. It was very early on in the morning. So it turns out what the issue was, we had a video clip of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, who was leading the multi-party campaign. And our biggest sin, and Moi had unwritten editorial guidelines, which he never shared with the media.
It was his parallel.
He would go to his book. And our biggest mistake was, it's okay to put Jaramogi's image on TV, but not his voice. So we had played a clip where Jaramogi was actually speaking. So it's not what we call in television, it was not a mute image. And the man was so furious. He had to go at us for 30 minutes. Look at I've never been so terrified. And you're seated like a few feet from him. The man who actually saved us was the chairman of the board, Mr. Kangwana, because he knew how to engage the president. So he immediately went into that praise and worship with and people like Oloha Ringo say, when you look at this, these are all kids. Wamezaliwa wote hawa, watoto wa uhuru, hata hawajui ni nini, without your efforts. Wewe ni mzazi number 1, teacher number 1. These are, in every home, you'll always have that errant child who runs this way and does the wrong thing, and they come back and they're all that, as a father, you sit that child down. And he worked on Moi's ego. And by the time the man was finishing his speech, you could see Mzee was now, beginning to, he was soothed. And he said, Kwenda apana rutiyo kitu tena. So he was actually calling us to shut down that station. This was, by extension, this was his
station. Shut down KTN.
It was part of the Kenya Times, Kenya Times Media Trust.
Yes.
He was actually going to shut it down. And so for the next 2 days, we were frightened. But because those days we were also working in parallel almost with the civil society, we decided, you know what, atujamaliza bado. So you'd sneak in a little Jaramogi to see what would happen and wait. Nothing happens. And so we kept pushing boundaries. And I think that's what defined the way we tell our television news. If we had not done that at that time under Moi, things, so I suppose what we are enjoying now are the fruits of what the guys here on the table have had to endure in news. It was a very frightening experience. And the worst thing is you come out, and because people know that when you go into State House, you don't come out empty-handed. The fellow says, hey, so, kitu, like guys who are left in the office, do you have anything to share? And we didn't want to talk. I went home traumatized.
Yes.
I came this close losing my job and that station being shut down. But he let us be.
A form of intimidation. And I'll revisit that with how it's treated now, because there's issues of the commercial muscle being used against media now when they cut resources coming in and revenue. Yes, I'll come to you, Bwana Masai. Sounds funny saying that. But Yusuf, because it's me. Yusuf, this is a picture here, and you could probably describe it, and if my director would be able to capture this some moments back, you can give us the context. But as you do that, because you're the man here with the high waist, tumbo waist or something, trousers, with the camera right down your tummy right there, facing, what was he telling you then? And then experiences from Moi. Were there moments he was livid, he was mad?
I'll go with the picture first, then I'll add up
Yes.
what you just
Sure.
explained about Jaramogi. This particular day was like any other day when the president arrives from a foreign trip. What would happen, he would pick, of course, he's informed, he would pick the topic of the day, the political topic of the day, the line that the opposition, the so-called dissidents, has been running,
Yes.
whatever the topic is. And he would look at the journalist informally, just as he's trying to get to his car. He would just look at the journalist and stop there and say, you know, you should never shame your mother even if she was mad. And you journalists, you have this problem. You are traitors. You lack patriotism. So this was one of the many.
It was giving you dressing down in front of people.
Yes, the media. And of course you can see who is the media there. The other gentleman was
The one in white, or?
Yeah.
Yes.
Was Martin's photographer, Moshene. Moshene.
Yeah.
That's Kenya Times. Yes. And if you check the eye contact of the president, he's
Yes.
not looking at Moshene.
It's you.
It's me direct, because he knew me very well. Yeah. He knew me very well.
Yes.
Simply because I explained earlier, to have a soft terrain for me to take pictures of Moi, I had to take the good side of Moi, either smiling. I took advantage of the fact that he loved humor.
Yes.
He loved humor very much. The comedians and works and the dancers, traditional dancers, when they bring humor into it, Moi becomes a very ordinary, warm father. He would even break into a very big laughter. So there he's looking at me, but he's talking to the editors, my bosses at the Nation, who are not there, and the opposition dissidents. But he's just taking advantage of my presence. So I was a corporate to him. I was a corporate what? Conveyor belt. He's sending a message through me, and that was a regular thing with him. And now, you can imagine what it meant. Moi was a very hyperactive president and a person, such that in one day he would go out for 5 different assignments. In the morning, leave for Djibouti to attend the IGAD conference. By 11, he's back. He flies to something to do with the Sudan. By 2 o'clock, he's somewhere past a parade, and we are in Kenoru Meru. By 6 o'clock, he's in Eldoret. And all these places, he used that method to update and to fight the media that is an enemy, most of the time. If not the media, it's the opposition is fighting. Let's come to experience at KTN with our brother here, Orungo. Interesting Moi. There he is very mad because of what KTN has done. They are getting the tongue lashing at State House. Then another day, I am on presidential assignment with my colleague Kwenda Opanga. What are we doing? The president has gone to commission a geothermal plant at the Takwel Gorge, yeah? And he's taken a retinue of diplomats, and
yes.
Among the VIPs is none other than Jaramogi. And Jaramogi at that time had already been given a job, a parastatal job, something to do with the cotton lint, the chairman cotton lint. And his health wasn't, he was not in his best of health. He had issues with the eyesight and kidogo limpish. He was, he's quite old. Now, it is the same president, and this is what I was talking about that you called, why you sanitizing Moi? This is what I would take advantage of. Moi, literally, after getting out of the car and all the diplomats are next to him, he went straight for Jaramogi and held his hand and started explaining to Jaramogi very softly what the project is all about, whispering, and he's moving on Jaramogi's pace. He slowed himself down to that level. And that is when Jaramogi announced, proclaimed that Moi is like a giraffe. Now Nambali. That was the day, that was the afternoon at Takwel Gorge.
Wow.
So here you have, 1 minute, the KTN is on fire, Mzee is furious, but another day, he goes to the same Jaramogi and things are different.
And it's human. Yeah, real quick, what I was saying.
Yeah, and this brings me to the question of assigning reporters to cover Moi. Because of the nature of Moi's temperament, there was always a constant danger of deploying anyone, and the reporter comes back telling you, Moi didn't say anything. There was no story.
Yeah.
Probably because the president is furious because of all these things. And when he started speaking, his utterances were so scattered that you couldn't join those statements to a story. Hence, any one time you wanted to deploy somebody to go and cover Moi, it had to be an experienced person who is able to take notes, notice that the president's thread, his thinking, has stopped at some point. He has jumped onto something else. And when you think he's done, he comes at the end of things to connect where he left. That was the man. And you know, you couldn't just cover Moi without looking at him, because many of the things that he would say that would have more meaning were in gestures.
Right.
Body language.
And I can tell you, for now, that's what's happening as we're wrapping up. When President Uhuru now does this and puts it aside and leans over to hold his mic, now we say, now that's the story, because you know he's going to utter one or two things. Bona, tell me before we go, there's something, there's also instances where you were arrested, but you somehow snaked out. Give us that tale real quick.
And if the cases have been concluded.
Yes, Bona, tell me.
At one time in Garissa, I was actually arrested for a story I did about banditry. Bandits attacked the residents of the PC, and the gunfire came in the night. I was in my house, so I crawled out to follow. You know, journalists as usual, you go where the danger is. I met some 4 APs who were my friends. They told me they're fighting over fighting shifters. So I spent the night with the APs. Three of them were killed. 4 of them were killed. So I had my story by the time it was morning. I had my story of the details. Now, the DC calls a press conference and says that last evening, one of our Land Rovers had a mechanical problem. It backfired. It sounded like gunfire. So I want to assure people, guess that it's a very peaceful fight. So can you imagine my anger? I was actually then employed by Kenya News Agency. But I used to, because KNA was supposed to report only what the DC says. So I began doing stories for the nation, but using a pseudonym.
Yes.
I used to call myself Olwenyo Carlo. So I filed my detailed piece of the killings of the APs, the attack of the PC's residents, and the background of the shifter war. Now, the DC knew he had contained the situation by telling us Land Rover did some manenos. Those days, it used to take 3 days for papers to arrive in Garissa. Now that day, Moi sees the splash. He calls the commissioner of police, who is not aware. Because the DC na PC wamekalia store. So kitu gani? Papers were flown there in a military chopper. So for the first time we got papers the same day. The PC, you want to tell you the power of Kano those days, the PC, provincial commissioner, ordered all shops closed, all businesses closed, and people were rounded up for a public rally. Rallies are forced to condemn the newspaper and the writer. I said, they don't know it's me.
Olwen.
So I did another story of the condemnation and the closure. Now, Moi was convinced that story was lie, was fake. And he ordered for the arrest of the reporter. They didn't have evidence, because those days, I would file my stories through telephone booths. And about angels, people working for post office who are like my guardian angels. They give me reverse calls. They tell me, wanakuja hapo special branch. Kimbia ile booth ingi. Every booth is like 10 kilometers away in the heat of Garissa. But now you sprint to go and find the rest of the story. So some of those guys, I have never met them, but I owe them my life.
Yes.
But because they suspected that I could be the writer, they picked all the young reporters who are in the Kenya News Agency and they were actually sent to, were locked up.
Because of you?
Yes. Motegi Njao is the only man that would say he had 6 balls. He drove he drove to Garissa. Those days he could not drive to Garissa without police escort, in a personal car to come and demand my release. Wow. Okay? That was one incident. The other incident was now encounter with Moi's anger.
Yes.
It was the Lugari by-election in 1994. A man called Apili Wawire had defected from Fort Kenya to Kanu. So Moi used to have big rallies, but majority of people, attendants were actually school children, tiny little kids waving flags. So I thought I said in my story that Moi would address rallies, but 90% of the crowd were school children.
Yes.
So Moi was in his convoy going to Lumakanda for a public rally, and I'm part of that convoy. So he stops at a market. He says, "Wapi muti ya gazeti, a nation." I innocently lifts my hand. And I actually threw the room at me.
Fimbo ya nyayo.
First of my karate swiftness, I ducked. It hit some guy that I think was some assistant minister. But he didn't let go. So he gave me a lecture why I should not stop writing lies. Now at the public rally, he actually called me Uchaba, and he held my hand. Sema hii watu naona ni ngapi? Sema ni wengi. Hapana wengi maelfu. So he told me what to write, maelfu. Kama ndio mzee maelfu. Then he's not telling the cameras. Ichana chuzo alikuwa ananiambia Mr. State House. He's not referring to maybe the days when he was vice president.
Yeah.
Sasa ameenda gazeti ya Borocho na Kabila naandika mambo ya kuharibu jina yangu. After that the arrest came.
Yes.
Because now you know what we used to do with the Yusuf, my friend Yusuf here, would make friends with the bodyguards. So make sure that they're well endowed with their drinks and nyama.
Yes.
So they became our friends. Ambia mzee amesema tukushike. So what you do, we shall follow you at high speed, up to the border of Webuye. When you flash your lights, you know we've released you. You tell him your car was supernatural. So that I did. I had some BBC lady, I think, had given a lift.
Yes.
Kambia utavaa nini seatbelt. Hiyo fika hiyo niyo can flash nikaenda mpaka Bungoma. But now the local boys, then they came to arrest me. But we went to the pub where the heads of drink, the senior policemen.
Yes.
So we're already there and the PPOs are there. And we muzinga muzi. The boys are coming with their guns and we went to arrest you. Get out. So lovely experiences.
My goodness. I mean, it's just because of time that you had to cut it. Yes.
Just on
real quick.
Motegi rescue to Garissa for Caleb. It's nice to have good editors and very courageous editors.
Who will stand with you.
Oh yes, they give you wings to fly. Motegi had just received a brand new Mazda saloon. It was the in thing.
Yes.
Then in the saloon cars, and he had generally retired from the newsroom. He was somewhere having his tea around midnight, and we didn't have these modern gadgets, but somehow he got the information. And Motegi took the brand new car from National Theatre and drove non-stop to Garissa.
To get his man.
And Motegi had an accident that saw him limping from that day onwards.
From that incident?
Yes.
And he told the provincial commissioner, even if Jesus Christ was a PC here, we're still going to get our stories.
And that was it. I was just adding that.
I mean, salute to
beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
just the other day I was threatened to
mile.
go to industrial area and Joseph was willing to let me go.
Oh yes, I said I'll bring porridge.
But I mean, it's great experiences that you're sharing. But as you really quickly wind up, we're way past our time. Do you think the things that we're able to do now that you couldn't do then, do we have it easier, and how should we utilize our space? Real quick.
I think things are relatively easier in the sense that we have the law to fall back on. And the new constitution, as I mentioned earlier, has done a lot of things. Of course, we are not yet where we ought to be, but things are a lot easier than they used to be.
Bwana Martin?
Yeah, you've come a long way. Technology has kicked in, and I think the current journalist, all he needs is courage, because things have changed. No matter how much we may dismiss magazeti kama vitu ya kufunga nyama, you can probably just say so. There's really nothing else that you can do. We must continue protecting these spaces, because there will be constant advances to lessen, the playing field. And I think we need to encourage media organizations to appreciate the vast knowledge that there is with veterans, much older people who know things, who are not active.
Yes.
And I think it's necessary for media organizations to continue to make use of that resource. When I look at BBC, the people I see on screen, the people I listen on radio, knowledgeable people, when things happen, doesn't need to go to any library. They really know. And we have that kind of resource locally, and I think it's necessary to continue using it. Technology has kicked in. Anyone can now be a journalist. Some of us began with this talk of a reverse call. I'm not so sure that you know what a reverse call is.
Not too clear about that.
You'd go to a booth.
It's a call me back.
And
I've heard of it, but I haven't.
And the dial system hadn't quite come, so you have to.
My version is please call me.
No, so you koroga, then an operator comes when he's ready to come. Reverse call this so and so. I want a reverse call to this number in Nairobi. So you wait, because there are probably 2 lines, and wait. And when you are reading that story, a story that is mentioning people sometimes adversely, is a big story. As you read it, a crowd gathers there.
In the market.
In the market, there are people who don't want to hear your version of the story. Some are shouting against, no, you can't say so. So you are even at risk. So now things have changed.
And on the bit Martin is on the telephone, it is a booth which was operated by the post office telecoms, and those booths, out of 10 times, only once it's working. And it only works through the GPO, the post office. The post office, on the other hand, for 42 districts, we had 42 districts there.
Originally there were 30.
Yeah, so 42 districts, you have 42 post office, and each post office must have 2 lines, only has 2 lines. And those 2 lines, by bureaucracy, must be free for the provincial commissioner, that's equivalent to governor, the DC, and the police, PPO. So, like Martin is explaining, when you want to do a reverse, you have to pray for 3 things. 1, the booth, the nearest, which is 4 kilometers away, is functional. To get a functional booth, number 1. Number 2, to get access to the post office man, operator. 2. Number 3, the line is clear. You can get him, but the DC is online talking to the PC. The whole district is at standstill as far as communication, flow of information is concerned. Now, reverse means once the post gentleman has got a line for you, he has to call your boss. Why? The bosses, the news editor there, has to control his expenditure. And then to avoid fake journalists and all what have you, you have to identify your person. Again, because of flow, the importance of news, the news editor wants maybe the story from Dorothy. Yeah. It's more important than one from Atemi. So I will only clear Dorothy because of the deadline and the importance of the story. Then later on, Atemi. Atemi, meanwhile, is hanging on a booth that the DC again. It was simply
that web.
Terrible.
We're just thinking of network. Kama tunapata network.
So like Martin is saying here, technology is here with the contemporary journalist. Please take advantage of it and penetrate deeper into the society, the stories, the hard stories, yes, the features, and the works.
All right.
Please do so. For us, we had to, a quick one. I was stationed with Caleb, stationed at Kisumu to cover the Ouko Commission of Inquiry for a year. And this is what I had to do every day, twice a day. Cover the session until 10 a.m. We're talking of technology. We are behind that time. From 10 a.m., when the bench goes for breaks for tea, I would quickly wind my film and write quick captions by hand, look for an envelope, seal it, sellotape it, run to Kisumu CBD to the what do you call them? Pujo. There were Pujo taxis, public taxis. Bukana, Wepesi, and Bukana, and the rest, the Bukinyas of this Kenya. And you look for the one that is almost filled up, and you sweet talk the driver. Say, I am Mark Masai from Nation. What time are you leaving? Another 10 minutes from now. Okay, this is mine, please. Nipeleke Nairobi. So you have to stand there. If he accepts, if not, you have to try the second one.
Same thing.
It's same thing. So once he accepts, you cannot leave, and you pray nothing happens at the. No, nothing happens at the assignment. Yeah. So
because
you're trying.
You've already sent
the
first version of the story. Yes.
Yes. So you only leave after the vehicle has left. Immediately after that, you have to run to for the nearest and to the nearest booth again. Scenario is the same. Chances. You are praying your God all the time. God was great.
We've definitely come.
And then you call the reverse, you go through, and that's the time you explain. I have sent my material through KVX, estimated time of arrival, Y, area, Nyamakema. The offices are somewhere near XYZ lodging and Bo. Please send somebody there. And that's how. And imagine when we were meeting deadlines. It's remarkable. Dorothy, is that right?
Yes.
At one time, me and my brother Kwendo Panga had to cover the Great Lakes Conference in NTV, where Clinton was the guest of honor. And Moi had just modernized, Presidential Press had just modernized their network, the cameras and the works and what. There was an aircraft. We had an aircraft there. And when APs and the rest were filing, Kwendo could not file because he is in a hotel in Kampala because we couldn't get a place in Entebbe. And Nation started consuming stories from AP and Reuters because Kwendo could not file back. And what did I do? I was lucky. I talked to Linjiro team and I gave them my bahasha and it flew because they were flying their material to KBC and to KTN. So what are we saying here with my brothers here? You have the latest technology. Please do more. You have what the Sister Dorothy is talking about. The Constitution is now friendly. I saw the other day, I couldn't believe it, riot at Kenyatta University. The policemen and journalists, they are working together. They break for lunch. Yeah. Ebu Jama, you stay cool. Let's meet at 2. Hey, my brother, at 2 o'clock. We have deadlines to beat. What's wrong with you? You know.
Funny.
Yeah. So things have changed for the better.
All right.
Exploit.
We will. And Bwana Atemi, the man with 6. No, let's just stay with the man with courage. The man with courage. Your advice.
Well, mine is very simple. I think my colleagues here have touched on the advantages that you guys have. All I can say that I'm glad you have Warungu here.
Yes.
Because what this team can see while seated, it requires you to climb the tallest mountain and still not see what you can see.
Yes.
So I think it's good to make use of those who've been there before. And I think regions all over the world are doing that. They get elders as consultants. Like no Moi has died.
Yes.
There are people who, even if you Google, you'll not get information that this team has.
Yes.
So it's easier to get the older fellows to do the background for
Background checks.
And you enrich your story. Then lastly, do more features. Features are lacking. We don't have. Dorothy used to do wonderful features with the Daily Nation. We used to do features as a duty. You spend months following one article. One article. And people would buy the paper because they know they expect a story from Atemi or from Dorothy, well researched detailed pieces. We need to go back there.
We need to go back there. What were your last words?
I think mine is quick. There's a saying in my language that when your house catches fire, you might as well warm yourself in that heat. What I mean by that is that even amongst dictators, there are good fruits. I'm trying to say that I credit President Moi for my international journalism career. I would not be where I am today if I had not been given a chance through KTN accompanying the presidential press unit to places like Nigeria, Rwanda, Zambia, Ethiopia during Mengistu's time. And that then helped me to see, like when I went to Zambia and they were also clamoring for multi-party democracy and, doing vox pops. I was doing things I could not do in my own country. Those guys say, to hell with this regime, one party. And so Kenyans also were seeing a different perspective. So just by appreciating the African context and the African scenario in different, places, it gave me an opportunity to see, there is life. When you're in this country and more, you think life ends in your village. But when you get out, you say, kumbe, there are also other Africans who are brave enough. They don't have those Atemi two things, but they're also, brave enough to counter that. So I credit Moi with helping me to see that there is another world outside of Kenya. And suddenly you can start putting what we call the dictator within a certain context in the politics of the time. So, and to say thanks for these conversations that should be recorded somewhere.
Oh yeah, I mean, I got carried away, and that's why we're at past midnight and past your birthday. Sorry, Dorothy, for that. But thank you for spending the last minutes of your birthday with us. And thank you for watching, for those who are still watching, for being patient, for the team that's made it possible. Even the team in studio have been having fun following the stories there. Thank you, Bwana Martin Masai. Thank you, Bwana Yusuf Washira. Thank you to Caleb Atemi. And thank you to Joseph Warungu. And a lot to learn from our seniors here. Thank you for watching. Have yourself a good night.
This is NTV.
Nilizae kama ajalema.
Serikali ileta dawa gani?
It's almost a year, nothing has been done.
I just need some form of information.
Soldier.
Dr. Mugo Wairimu first hit the headlines when a video clip showing him raping an unconscious female patient in his clinic.
Wale wanaohusika pia wanajulikana lakini hawashikwi.
With the puzzle surrounding the sugar saga yet to be cleared.
How many times were you sexually abused?
Like 3 times.
How was a convicted child molester allowed to set up a children's home in the country?
NTV News. Bold, balanced, authoritative.
In your paper this week, Museveni's Edge Test. East